The first light of dawn breaks over the endless plains, filling the sky with the soft hues of pink and gold. It's the kind of morning where the world seems to hold its breath, still, as though the land itself is waiting for something. The sun is just peeking over the horizon, casting long shadows across the land and turning the sparse grasses into glistening blades of gold. The chill of the night has not yet fully disappeared, and the air is cool, crisp, and fresh with a scent of earth and sagebrush. For just a moment, everything feels still, untouched, and at peace. But peace doesn't last long here. The land is vast, so vast that it's hard to tell where the earth ends and the sky begins. The horizon stretches endlessly, with the jagged peaks of distant mountains barely visible on the far edge. The emptiness is overwhelming in its beauty and its harshness. It's a beauty that can break a man, and yet it's the kind of beauty that calls to you. Out here, you're at the mercy of the land, the elements, and the unpredictability of the world. No one gets to rest for long. No one gets to take it easy. The work is constant, relentless, and unforgiving. As you rise from your bedroll, your bones protest. Every cowboy knows that the first few minutes of waking are the hardest. Your body aches from yesterday's labor, and your muscles are stiff from hours of riding and guiding cattle. The ground beneath you is hard and unforgiving, the coolness of the earth seeping into your skin. The wind picks up again, whistling across the vast plains, sending the dry grass rustling. The sound of it fills the air, an eerie, almost ghostly sound that seems to echo the endless, solitary nature of life out here. The land stretches out in front of you, and for a moment, you feel both insignificant and completely at home. The isolation here is both a comfort and a burden. There are no roads, no people, no buildings, just miles and miles of open land. And yet, this is where you find yourself. The land doesn't care about your struggles, your desires, or your comfort. It just is. And you are here, part of it, for however long the trail leads you. You stand up slowly, stretching the stiffness out of your body, and gaze out over the herd. The cattle are still resting, their large bodies huddled together in the stillness of the morning. They are the reason you are here, driven by instinct. They follow you through the harsh terrain, moving from one place to another, from one distant pasture to the next. And though you have a bond with them, it's an uneasy one. They are creatures of their own, unpredictable and driven by their own fears. In the distance, the sound of a horse's hooves breaks the silence, and you see one of your fellow cowboys stirring, readying his horse. One by one, the camp begins to come alive, and the routine starts again. You glance around at the others, men hardened by the trail, who have all learned, like you, to face the unrelenting challenges of the Wild West with quiet resolve. There is no room for weakness out here. Everyone knows their part, and there's no need for words. The tasks are set. Get the cattle moving, get them across the trail, and deal with whatever else the day brings. Breakfast is simple, just as it always is. You eat quickly, not because you're in a rush, but because there's no need to linger. The meal is basic beans, a bit of bacon, maybe some dried bread. You wash it down with strong coffee that burns your throat, but keeps you awake. Your stomach grumbles, but there's no time to waste. The day will be long, and you'll need every bit of energy you can muster. You finish eating, rise to your feet, and gather your gear. The air is already warming as the sun climbs higher, and you know the heat will soon become unbearable. You check your saddle, adjust your hat, and make sure your revolver is within reach. Out here, you never know when you might need it. You move towards your horse, your closest companion, the one thing that remains constant in this unforgiving land. You mount up, feeling the familiar creak of the saddle beneath you, and set your eyes on the herd. Another day of work begins, another stretch of miles that must be covered. Segment 1. What it was really like in the American Wild West. The start of the day. The day begins early in the Wild West, just as the first light of dawn breaks across the land. It is a time when the world feels at peace briefly before the harsh realities of the day take hold. You rise before the sun, the familiar groans of your body as you sit up from your bedroll. You shake off the remnants of sleep, stretch your limbs, and take a moment to appreciate the stillness of the early morning. For a brief moment, there's quiet, no wind, no cattle, just the soft sounds of the earth itself. But you know better than to linger. Out here, peace is fleeting. You stand, feeling the weight of your body as your legs protest against the effort. Every cowboy is used to this, the aches and stiffness of hard work. There is no time to rest, and no room for weakness. You grab your hat, pull your coat tighter around your shoulders, and glance around at the camp. Your fellow cowboys are already stirring, each of them moving with quiet efficiency. The fire from last night is nearly out, its embers glowing faintly. You walk over to the fire, adding more wood, watching as the flames leap higher. The warmth from the fire, a brief respite from the chill in the air. The smell of burning wood mixes with the faint scent of your breakfast cooking. The others are already preparing their horses, readying their gear. There's no time for talking, no need for words. The day is set, and everyone knows what's ahead. Breakfast is simple beans, bacon, maybe a bit of stale bread. It's the kind of meal that doesn't require much thought. You eat quickly, knowing that the work will soon demand every ounce of energy you have. Your body aches from the previous day's labor, but that's nothing new. The cowboy life is a constant push against exhaustion, a never-ending cycle of work under the harshest conditions. You finish your meal, wipe your hands on your pants, and turn your attention to your horse. It stands nearby, its body still, waiting for you. You saddle up, the leather creaking as you adjust the straps, feeling the weight of it in your hands. Every cowboy knows their saddle, their gear, their ropes, like the back of their hand. These tools are an extension of yourself, and without them, survival would be impossible. The horses begin to stir, the soft sounds of hooves shifting across the earth filling the air. You glance at the herd. They are still sleeping, their massive bodies stretched out across the dry earth. It will be some time before they are ready to move, but you know the day ahead will be long, and the cattle will need to be guided. The sun is already rising, the heat of the day beginning to take over. It will be another grueling day, the same as the one before it, and the one before that. It's a rhythm you've come to know. Well, wake up, work, guide the cattle, and sleep, only to wake and do it all again. The land around you is vast, so much so that it feels as though it could swallow you whole. There are no roads, no cities, no signs of civilization, only the endless stretch of earth, the harsh light of the sun, and the unrelenting wind. It's a land that both gives life and takes it, a place where survival is a constant battle. There's no room for hesitation. Every cowboy knows that the moment you let your guard down, the land will show its true nature: harsh, unforgiving, and relentless. The first few miles of the trail are always the hardest. The cattle are sluggish, their movements slow as they adjust to the day. The ground is dry and cracked, the heat of the sun already beginning to take hold. You guide the herd forward, using your voice, your reins, and your body to keep them moving in the right direction. The cattle are stubborn, each one driven by its own instincts, its own rhythm. They are easily distracted, easily spooked, and it's your job to keep them on track. The heat is suffocating. You can feel it on your skin, the dry, oppressive warmth that seems to press down from every direction. The sweat pours down your face, stinging your eyes as you wipe it away with the back of your hand. Your throat is dry, your lips cracked from the relentless sun. You take a swig from your canteen, the warm water doing little to quench your thirst. The land stretches out endlessly before you: grasslands, rocky hills, the occasional sparse tree. There's nothing here but dust, dirt, and the occasional rock outcrop. The landscape feels as if it has not been touched by human hands in centuries. The wind picks up, kicking dust into your face, making it hard to see. You squint against it, pushing forward, guiding the herd through the endless terrain. Every step feels like a struggle, every mile a battle against the land. The cattle are restless. You can hear their low moos as they shift, their massive bodies moving with the rhythm of the herd. They are creatures of instinct, driven by forces you can't control. A single sound, a shift in the wind, can send them into a panic. They are unpredictable, each one driven by fear, hunger, or something as simple as a shift in the air. One of the steers breaks from the herd, its head turning sharply, its body tense. The rest of the cattle follow suit, slowly at first, but then with growing panic. The herd begins to splinter, and you know it's your job to fix it. The land is harsh enough, and if you lose control of the herd here, it could mean the end of the journey. You dig your heels into your horse's side, pushing it forward, urging it through the chaos. You call to the cattle, your voice firm and steady, trying to calm them. But the panic is spreading. The herd is now fully in flight, moving in every direction, and you find yourself at the center of it all. You're surrounded by hooves, dust, and chaos. The air is thick with panic, the pounding of hooves deafening. It's moments like these when the cowboy's skill is truly tested. The ability to read the cattle, to understand their movements and instincts, is the key to survival. You guide the herd, turning your horse sharply, pushing them back together. Slowly, the chaos begins to subside. The cattle, exhausted by their own panic, begin to slow. You've regained control, but just barely. The world is still wrapped in the quiet hush of early morning. The only sounds breaking the silence are the gentle whispers of the wind through the long grass and the low, contented murmurs of the cattle. You lie still, the weight of your body pressing against the cold earth beneath you. The familiar discomfort of the bedroll wraps around you like an old friend, stiff, lumpy, and not quite warm enough to make sleep easy, but familiar in a way that you've come to accept. You've been awake for longer than you realize. The restless sleep of a cowboy filled with dreams of endless trails, cattle wandering off, and storms chasing you across the plains. Your body, accustomed to the rigors of this life, feels sore before you even open your eyes. The deep aches of muscles that have ridden for hours and worked long into the day settle into your bones, and the stiffness of the night lingers in every joint. The sun hasn't yet fully crested the horizon, but already the faintest touch of light begins to seep into the darkened sky, transforming the distant mountains from dark silhouettes to jagged shadows. The air is cool, but you know it won't last long. You pull yourself up from your bedroll slowly, wincing as your joints creak and groan in protest. Your lower back is tight, stiff from hours in the saddle yesterday, and your legs feel heavy, as though they've ever been weighed down by the sheer effort of carrying you through miles of tough, unforgiving terrain. You stand for a moment, stretching your back, your arms reaching toward the sky as the cool morning air fills your lungs. The scent of earth, dry grass, and sagebrush mixes in the air, a constant reminder that this is where you belong, for better or worse. Your body aches in ways you can even begin to explain muscles that have long since forgotten what it is like to rest, bones that have felt every single hour of the ride. Every movement is slow and deliberate. You flex your fingers, feeling the ache in your knuckles from holding the reins, from the wear and tear of the rope and saddle. Your legs feel heavy as you stand, and there is a twinge in your knees that reminds you of the endless days you've spent in the saddle. But there's no time for hesitation. You've done this before, and you will do it again, as you have done for countless mornings. You stand tall, but you feel the weight of the world in your bones. Your hat sits a little crooked on your head, the brim a constant companion that shades your eyes and shields you from the sun's unrelenting rays. The sun is low in the sky, just beginning to paint the world in hues of gold and amber, but the land is already beginning to feel the warmth. You can sense it, even before the temperature rises. This is the moment before the heat becomes unbearable. The wind carries the scent of the land with it, and you can almost taste the dust on your lips as the wind shifts across the plains. Every cowboy knows that the morning is not a time for rest. The work starts the moment you rise, and though your body is screaming for relief, the land doesn't wait. You glance over at the herd, their low murmurs filling the early air. They're still grazing, their bodies heavy and thick, each one marked with sweat from the long, hot days on the trail. You move toward them, your boots scraping lightly against the dry dirt beneath you. The soles of your boots have seen better days, the leather worn and cracked, but they're still sturdy enough to hold up against the harsh terrain. Each step feels like an effort. The ground is uneven, rocky in places, and the stiffness of your legs makes each stride a small battle. Your shoulders ache from the constant strain of carrying your saddle, and your hips throb from the hours of sitting rigid in the saddle, but it's the mental fatigue that weighs most heavily on you today. The loneliness of the trail has begun to settle in, its quiet presence pressing in from all sides. There's no conversation, no distraction from the long ride ahead. It's just you, your horse, and the endless horizon. You've been here before, waking to the stillness of the morning, feeling the soreness settle into your bones, and yet you know it's time to saddle up and keep moving. The mental toll of this life is often greater than the physical one. You are constantly alone in the wilderness, surrounded by miles of land and no one to share the journey with. Even the other cowboys, though close by, are isolated in their own ways. No one speaks much, and when they do, the words are few, meant only for the task at hand. The land out here is harsh, and the work is constant. The miles stretch ahead of you, endless and unchanging. There are no easy days, no relief from the sun. The wind, though gentle now, will soon pick up and carry the dust across the plains. You know that cattle need to be moved, and there's no time to waste. You stand, feeling the weight of it, all pressing down on you, every task ahead, every mile to cover, the constant pressure to keep the herd moving. The physical exhaustion is just a small part of it. The emotional toll, being away from family, being away from civilization, knowing that your only companions are the cattle, the horses, and the occasional cowboys around the campfire. This is the true burden. The cowboy life is one of solitude, and though you've learned to accept it, there are times when the isolation weighs heavily, There is no conversation to fill the silence, no comfort other than the routine of the day. You wonder, briefly, if anyone back home remembers you, if they know the struggles you face day after day. But that's the life you've chosen. The open range, the endless plains, the cattle that must be guided across this unforgiving land. This is your reality now. And though the isolation is deep, it's also strangely comforting. You've learned to live with the silence. You've come to understand that out here, there are no distractions, no chatter, no noise, just the wind and the cattle. The simplicity is something you crave, something you need. But even in the midst of all this simplicity, there's a constant, gnawing sense of loneliness that never fully leaves. You can hear the low sounds of the cattle as they stir, their bodies shifting against each other. The herd is large, and it moves slowly, but it will take you all day to move them from one grazing spot to the next. The work is constant, and you are always pushing forward, always moving, always guiding them along the trail. But inside, there is something that yearns for connection, for the voices of family, friends, or even the chatter of a nearby town. Out here, there is nothing, just you, the land, and the cattle. As the day progresses, the emotional weight of this solitude settles in. The land feels vast, endless, and you can't help but feel small in comparison. There's no refuge from it, no easy way to escape the isolation. Even when you're surrounded by fellow cowboys, the silence remains. You've grown accustomed to it, but there are times when the isolation feels unbearable. You think back to the days before the trail, the moments spent with family, the conversations with friends, the laughter of others. But those memories are fading now, blurred by the days and nights that have passed in solitude. The only sound you hear now is your own voice, quiet low, used only to guide the cattle, to reassure them. The land stretches out before you, endless and unchanging. The sun, now fully risen, beats down with an intensity that is almost suffocating. You can feel the heat rising from the earth, the dry soil beneath you cracking, every step you take, kicking up the thick dust that coats everything. The scent of dry grass, dust, and sagebrush fills your nostrils, and the wind, though it cools your skin momentarily, does little to alleviate the overwhelming heat. Your clothes are soaked with sweat, your shirt clinging to your back, the fabric chafing against your skin. You hear the sound of hooves against the dry earth, the rhythm steady and sure as your horse moves beneath you. The low bellowing of cattle is constant, the sound of hundreds of animals moving together as one. The occasional whinny of a horse breaks the monotony of the ride, and the creaking of leather fills the silence as you shift in the saddle, adjusting your position to relieve the ache in your thighs. The land around you seems to ripple with the heat. The grass bends beneath your horse's hooves, crackling underfoot, the dry earth shifting with each step. Dust clouds follow the herd, coating the cattle in a fine, gritty layer. You can taste it in your mouth, gritty and dry, and you cough to clear your throat, but it's a brief relief. The land offers little respite. Even the air feels heavy, as if it's holding its breath, waiting for something to break the stillness. And then, in the distance, you see it, the first signs of a storm forming on the horizon. Dark clouds begin to gather, slowly swallowing the blue sky. The temperature shifts again, dropping just slightly as the wind picks up. The cattle sense it too, and you can feel the tension rising in the air. The herd grows restless, their bodies shifting uneasily. The wind, once a soft whisper, now picks up, carrying with it the scent of rain. The sound of distant thunder rumbles in the background, a reminder of the unpredictability of life out here. You take a deep breath, the earthy scent of the coming storm mingling with the dust, and you prepare yourself for the inevitable. As you move through the familiar motions of your day, mounting your horse, guiding the cattle, checking your gear, the work becomes mechanical, almost meditative. There's a rhythm to it, a steady pace that never varies. Every day is a repetition of the one before it. And yet, there is always something new to face. A new challenge, a new piece of land to cross, a new stretch of trail to cover. But amidst the constant labor, your mind wanders, seeking solace in the simplicity of the life you've chosen, though it doesn't always offer relief. Your hands grip the reins with a familiarity that's become instinct. Every pull, every shift in direction is a movement you don't have to think about anymore. The same goes for your horse, whose movements are ingrained in your memory. Yet, there's a moment of stillness, a fleeting pause in the flow of the work, where you allow yourself to reflect. Why are you here? Why did you leave the life you once knew? The answers aren't easy, but they come to you, as they always have, wrapped in layers of dust and time. You came out here to escape something. You're not sure what that something was. Perhaps it was a person, a place, or just the weight of a life you didn't want to carry anymore. The noise, the demands, the expectations, it all became too much. The cities, the chatter, the crowded streets, they all seemed suffocating. The West, with its vast, open spaces, offered something simpler. It offered freedom, or at least the illusion of it. But freedom isn't as simple as it seems. Out here, in the midst of this endless expanse, you are free. Yes, free from obligations, from expectations, from the weight of the world pressing down on your shoulders. But there's a price. Solitude. The kind of loneliness that settles into your bones. The kind that creeps in when the work is done, and the silence stretches on. You've become accustomed to it, learned to live with it. But there are times, when the wind picks up or when the cattle move slower than they should, that the loneliness presses in harder than usual. You wonder, sometimes, if you'll ever be able to shake it, if this life of solitude will follow you no matter how far you ride, and then you remember why you keep going. Because out here, you are needed. The cattle need you to go, to keep them on the path. The land needs you to survive it. The simplicity of the work is a comfort in its own right. No distractions, no complications. The only thing that matters is the herd, the trail, the land. In that, there is a strange sort of peace. The wind stirs around you, and the dust kicks up, mixing with the heat. You glance at the cattle, moving steadily forward, their bodies shifting together like a living, breathing force of nature. They don't question where they're going, they just follow. There's something about their instinctual need to keep moving, to keep following the trail, that resonates with you. Maybe you're not so different from them, after all. You're following a path, one that you may not fully understand yet, but it's a path that leads somewhere. As you guide the herd forward, the horizon stretches endlessly before you. The land, vast and open, feels as though it could swallow you whole. It is both a comfort and a challenge, a reminder that out here you are but a small part of a much larger world. You can see for miles, but in that vastness, you feel the weight of your insignificance. There is no one to talk to out here, no one to share your thoughts with. The thought crosses your mind, what are you running from? You've never really thought about it that way. You came to the West for a new life, but there are pieces of the past that still linger, places in your heart that haven't fully healed. The silence has a way of bringing those thoughts to the surface, forcing you to face them, even when you'd rather not. You try to focus on the cattle, on the next step, on the miles ahead, but the past has a way of creeping in, of asking you questions you don't have answers to. Did you make the right choice? The isolation out here is like a double-edged sword. You came here seeking peace, seeking a simpler life, but now that peace feels more like a weight. It's the weight of being away from family, away from friends, from everything that once tied you to a life you left behind. There are moments, fleeting but real, when you feel the absence of those connections. You wonder about the people you've left behind, about what they're doing, about the lives they continue to live while yours has slowed to the rhythm of the herd and the trail. The land here offers no relief from the loneliness. There are no cities, no villages to visit, no towns with bustling marketplaces. It's just the same trail, the same endless horizon. Even when the other cowboys are nearby, the silence remains. There's no conversation to fill the void. The only sounds are the cattle, the hooves of your horse, and the occasional rustle of the wind. The silence feels deafening at times, but there is a strange comfort in it too. The silence is a companion, in a way. It's a reminder that out here, there are no expectations. No one to please, no one to disappoint. It's just you and the land, doing what must be done to survive. And maybe that's all you really need. The simplicity of it. The peace that comes from not having to worry about anything except moving forward, keeping the cattle together, and riding the trail. The hours drag on, the miles stretch out before you, and the herd moves steadily forward. There's little conversation among the cowboys, just the occasional exchange of looks or brief instructions. It is not that there is anything wrong with the company. These men have become your brothers in arms, but the work is demanding. And the land doesn't care about the camaraderie. The land, with its vastness and isolation, is a world unto itself. And there's little room for anything other than the task at hand. Yet, there are moments, small moments, when your mind begins to wander. The loneliness begins to creep in. You think about the life you left behind, about family and friends, about the people you may never see again. You think about why you're here, why you chose this life of solitude, of hardship, and of constant labor. Was it the promise of freedom? Was it the lure of the West, the open space, the unending horizon? Or was it something else? Maybe you came here because you needed to leave something behind, something you weren't proud of, something that made you want to escape. There's a reason you left everything behind, a reason you ran from the world you once knew. But now, out here in the middle of nowhere, there's nothing but time to think, and thinking leads to reflection. It leads to wondering if you've made the right choice, or if you're running from something that will always follow you, no matter how far you ride. The work doesn't allow for much time to dwell on these thoughts, but the silence of the land makes it hard to ignore. You glance over at the cattle, their steady movement, offering a distraction from the internal turmoil. They're not thinking about the past. They're not thinking about anything except the path ahead of them. There's something comforting in their simplicity, their instinctual need to keep moving forward. You look to the horizon again, watching the sun climb higher in the sky. The heat will soon become unbearable, and the day will drag on as it always does. But for now, the air is still cool, and the work is still manageable. You push your horse forward, urging it on with a gentle prod of your heels. The cattle follow, moving steadily, and for a brief moment, you allow yourself to feel a sense of purpose. This is your life now, and you will continue on, even as the questions remain unanswered. The simple comfort of routine. As you ride, the rhythm of the herd becomes almost hypnotic. The cattle move in unison, their large bodies shifting together like an intricate machine. The sound of their hooves thudding against the earth creates a steady beat, a quiet background to the silent thoughts that float through your mind. You let the rhythm take over, letting your thoughts drift as the hours pass. The work becomes routine, and in that routine, there's comfort. This is the simplicity you've come to appreciate. There are no distractions, no complicated decisions to make. There's just the work, the herd, and the endless miles that lie ahead. In a strange way, the simplicity of it all offers a kind of peace. You've learned to live without the noise of civilization, without the demands of modern life. It's just you, the cattle, and the land. And for now, that's enough. The first light of dawn stretches lazily across the vast, unspoiled plains, spilling over the land in hues of gold and amber. The air is cool with the remnants of the night, crisp and fresh, but the sun is rising quickly, promising the heat of the day to come. The wind, though gentle now, carries with it the sharp, earthy scent of sagebrush and dust. It stirs the dry grasses in a rhythm that seems to echo the steady pulse of the land itself. You wake with the first light, your body stiff from another night spent sleeping on the cold ground, your bones aching from the long hours of riding the day before. You don't need an alarm to wake out, hear the land, the sky, the air, they all tell you when it's time to rise. The world is quiet at first, the kind of silence that can only be found in the wilderness, where nature reigns without the hum of civilization to disturb it. As you slowly sit up in your bedroll, the stillness of the morning fills your senses. The sky is already brightening, but the stars are still visible, faint pinpricks of light in the deep blue of the pre-dawn sky. You stretch your arms above your head, feeling the tension in your muscles as they protest against the effort. You've become accustomed to this. Soreness, this is the life of a cowboy, a life of constant movement, of endless work under the unforgiving sun. But the aches and pains are familiar now. They are part of the rhythm. The fire is barely aglow, just a few embers left from the night before. You stand, feeling the weight of your own weariness, but knowing you must start the day nonetheless. The horses are already up, their heads low as they graze on the sparse grass around the camp. You make your way over to your horse, the first familiar figure of the day. Your horse is tethered nearby, its coat rough and weathered from the long days on the trail, but it is strong, reliable. You reach out to pat its neck, feeling its warmth under your fingers, and it nuzzles against your palm in response. You've ridden this horse for years, and its steady presence is as much a part of your life as the air you breathe. You move around the camp, gathering your gear, checking the saddle, reins, and ropes. There is no time to waste. You've learned to work quickly and efficiently. Every moment counts. You check your revolver, making sure it's within reach, always a necessary precaution in the unpredictable West. You can never be too careful out here. There's no law but your own, and trouble can rise in an instant. Your fellow cowboys are stirring now, preparing their horses, ready in their gear. Each man falls into his own rhythm, the silent movements of men who have been through this routine countless times. There's no need for words. Everyone knows what to do, knows the tasks ahead. The work is simple, but the life is hard. The day starts with a quiet, methodical routine. It's a rhythm, you start the fire again, adding fresh wood to the embers, letting it catch and grow into a small blaze. The smell of the burning wood fills the air, mixing with the scent of coffee. the kind that's brewed strong over the open flame. You fill your cup, the liquid dark and rich, a much-needed pick-me-up to face the long day ahead. There's no luxury in this life, no comfort except what you make for yourself in moments like this, brief respites before the work consumes you again. The food is simple, the same every day. Beans, bacon, some hard bread that's tough but filling. It's not much, but it's enough to fuel you through the long hours. You take your time with your meal, savoring it, knowing that tomorrow's breakfast will likely be just as simple. There's a comfort in routine, no surprises, just the same steady tasks, the same slow-moving days. The other cowboys are doing the same, each man quietly preparing for the ride. You glance over at the cattle, still huddled together, resting after their long night. They will need to be moved soon, herded to the next grazing spot, but for now, there's a brief moment of calm. You finish your meal, cleaning your bowl and setting it aside. There's no hurry, just the gradual preparations for the day ahead. You make sure your rope is coiled tightly, checking it for any frays. You know from experience that a loose rope can be disastrous during the day's work. Everything must be in its place, every piece of gear ready to go. You can't afford mistakes in the Wild West. Your saddle is already prepared, the leather creaking slightly as you adjust it on your horse. You take a moment to check your horse's feet, making sure nothing is stuck in its hooves, nothing that could slow it down. It's a small task, but important. The horse is your only true companion out here. It carries you through every mile, every storm, every moment of hardship. You've learned to trust it, to depend on it, and it has never let you down. The sun is rising higher now, painting the world in brighter shades of orange and pink. The land is coming alive, slowly shaking off the remnants of the night's coolness. You glance around at your fellow cowboys again, each of them focused on their tasks. There is no conversation, no idle chatter. The cowboy life is a solitary one, and even when surrounded by others, there is a quiet, almost deafening sense of solitude. The work requires focus, and the land demands it. The cattle are starting to stir, moving about restlessly as they prepare for the day's journey. You swing yourself into the saddle, feeling the familiar creak of the leather as it adjusts to your weight. Your horse shifts beneath you, eager to begin the day. You take the reins in your hands, the leather sore from years of use, and guide your horse toward the herd. The morning is just beginning, and the long ride stretches out before you. The herd begins to move, slowly at first, the cattle shifting their weight and trudging forward. The hooves of the cattle create a rhythmic thudding sound as they make their way across the dry earth. The smell of sweat and dust hangs in the air, mixing with the faint scent of grass and the ever-present scent of sagebrush. The land feels vast, stretching endlessly around you. There's no sign of civilization here, just the open plains and the mountains rising in the distance. You ride beside the herd, keeping pace with their slow movements. There's no rush today, just steady, deliberate progress. You keep your eyes on the horizon, always looking ahead, always anticipating the next move. The terrain is rough, rocky in places, with the occasional stretch of flatland. The earth is dry, cracked from the lack of rain, and the heat of the sun begins to bear down on you. You can feel it on your skin, warming you, making every movement feel heavier. The cattle are sluggish now, their movements slow and labored in the heat. You nudge your horse forward, urging it to move faster, and the cattle follow suit, though they are reluctant. The herd is large, and you have to keep them together, making sure they don't break off in different directions. It's a constant battle, keeping the cattle moving in the right direction. They are stubborn, easily distracted, and the rhythm of the ride becomes a delicate dance, guiding them forward, always pushing them to the next destination. The hours pass slowly. The sun climbs higher, the heat intensifying with every passing moment. Sweat trickles down your forehead, stinging your eyes, but you don't stop. The ride is long, and the land is unforgiving. You pull your canteen from your saddlebag and take a long drink, the warm water barely quenching your thirst. There's no relief from the heat, no shade, no cool breeze to offer respite. You wipe your brow with the back of your hand and continue guiding the cattle forward. The land seems endless. Every step is a struggle. Every mile feels like an eternity. The heat presses down on you, and the cattle are showing signs of fatigue, their slow movements becoming more and more labored. You nudge your horse forward again, pushing it just a little faster, and the herd follows. The hours stretch on as the herd continues its slow journey across the harsh landscape. The sun rises higher, casting a scorching heat over everything. You can feel the weight of it on your back, like a constant pressure pushing you down. Every step feels harder than the last, and every mile you cover seems to add another layer of weariness to your bones. You've grown accustomed to the exhaustion that follows each long day of riding, but that doesn't make it easier. Your muscles ache from the constant motion, from the endless hours spent on horseback, guiding the cattle. Your legs are sore, the backs of your knees stiff from the pressure of the saddle. Your shoulders are tight from gripping the reins for hours on end, your fingers raw and calloused. There's no way to escape the physical toll. You stretch your neck, trying to ease the stiffness in your back, but it doesn't help. Every part of you is fatigued. The heat doesn't relent, and it's almost suffocating. Sweat pours from your brow, mixing with the dust on your face to create a sticky layer that's almost unbearable. Your clothes are drenched, heavy with moisture that clings to your skin. Every movement, no matter how small, feels like a monumental effort. You can feel the weight of your body pressing down with each step, each stride of your horse, as you continue to push through the day. Your horse, too, is weary, its hooves kicking up dust as it moves slowly across the sun-baked earth. You can feel the strain in its movements, just as you feel it in your own body. It, too, is tired, but it follows your lead without complaint. There's a certain solidarity in the exhaustion. You're both working together, pushing through the same unrelenting heat, the same rough terrain. The wind is dry, harsh, carrying dust in its wake. It doesn't provide the relief that you might hope for. Instead, it just stirs the air, making it hotter, thicker, more suffocating. The dust clings to everything: the leather of your saddle, the reins, your clothing, and your skin. It feels like a part of you now, a constant reminder of the land you're navigating, the world you've chosen to live in. As the hours continue to pass, the emotional toll becomes harder to ignore. There's a profound sense of isolation out here in the Wild West, a solitude that seeps into your bones and weighs heavy on your heart. Even though you're surrounded by the other cowboys, it feels as though you're entirely alone. The work is solitary, and the land is vast. Endless stretch of earth makes you feel small and insignificant. You glance over at your fellow cowboys, but the exhaustion in their faces mirrors your own. No one speaks. The cowboy life doesn't leave room for chatter. The rhythm of the day is set by the cattle and the land, not by words. The silence between you and your companions is comfortable in its own way, but it's also suffocating. There's a certain kind of loneliness in this life, one that doesn't go away, no matter how long you've been out here. The isolation is overwhelming, and you feel it every time you stop and look around. The vastness of the land seems to swallow you whole. There's no one to talk to, no one to share your thoughts with. You've grown accustomed to the silence, but sometimes it's almost too much to bear. The nights are the hardest. As the fire burns low and the stars blanket the sky above you, the solitude becomes unbearable. The only sounds are the crackle of the fire, the occasional rustling of the cattle, and the faint howls of coyotes in the distance. You sit by the fire, your legs stretched out in front of you, and feel the weight of the quiet pressing in. Your mind drifts to home, what it would be like to hear a voice, to speak with someone who knows you, who knows what it's like to be more than just a cowboy, more than just a man alone in the wilderness. But there's no escape from the solitude. There's no room for weakness in this life, no room for feeling sorry for yourself. You push the thoughts away, bury them deep down, where they won't interfere with the work ahead. You remind yourself why you're out here: to earn a living, to survive, to live a life of purpose. But a dose and tea change the feeling of loneliness that seems to follow you from one day to the next. The real test of strength, however, is mental. It's easy to ride through the day physically, but it's the constant mental effort that wears you down over time. The days are long, the work unending, and the world around you offers little in terms of relief. There's no comfort here, no time for distractions. It's just the land, the cattle, and the endless ride forward. Every cowboy must develop a certain kind of mental fortitude to endure this life. You learn to block out the pain, the loneliness, the exhaustion, and focus solely on the task at hand. You can't afford to think about how far you still have to go, how many more miles must be covered, or how tired your body feels. All you can do is keep moving forward. The land itself is both a blessing and a curse. There's beauty in its vastness, in the rugged hills and endless grasslands, but there's also a harshness in it that can break a man. You're constantly battling the elements, the scorching heat of the summer, the freezing winds of winter, the sudden storms that roll in without warning. There's no predictability here, no easy days. Every day presents a new challenge, a new test of and still, you push forward. You've learned that the only way to survive in this world is to keep going, no matter what. There's no room for hesitation. The cattle must be moved, the herd must be guided. Your hands grip the reins tighter as you urge your horse onward. The miles stretch before you, the land offering no comfort, no relief. But you ride on, your focus unwavering. The only thing that matters is the next step, the next mile. Your mind drifts occasionally, wondering if this is really the life you want. But those thoughts quickly fade. The work must continue. The cattle must be kept in line, and the trail must be ridden. There is no other choice. The mental toll of the cowboy's life is perhaps the hardest part to bear, but it's also the most defining. Every cowboy must learn to endure, to press on despite the weight of the world around him. The land is both beautiful and unforgiving. There's a wildness to it, a rawness that can be breathtaking, but it's also a place that demands respect. The scenery is constantly shifting to canyon to the left, a stretch of grassy plain to the right, the endless horizon always just out of reach. Every hill, every rock, every patch of grass tells a story. The land is ancient, untouched by the hands of civilization, and it holds a certain power that can be both awe-inspiring and humbling. At times, the beauty of the landscape strikes you with such force that it takes your breath away. You look out across the plains, the golden grass swaying in the wind, the sky a soft blue above. The mountains in the distance stand like sentinels, silent and proud, their peaks touching the heavens. You feel a deep sense of connection to this land, as though it's a part of you, something that's been with you since the beginning. The land is harsh, yes, but it's also home, and there's a comfort in that. But the land is not always kind. The weather can turn in an instant. One moment, the sky is clear. The next, dark clouds gather, and a storm begins to roll in. The wind picks up, carrying with it the scent of rain, and you know that a downpour is coming. The ground becomes slippery, and the cattle are restless, sensing the change in the air. You move quickly, guiding the herd to safety, but the storm comes faster than you expected, and before you know it, you're soaked to the bone, your clothes heavy with water, your skin chilled by the sudden cold. In moments like these, the beauty of the land seems distant, overshadowed by its unpredictable fury, but you've learned to survive it. The storms pass, the sun comes back out, and you continue on. The land may be unrelenting, but so are you. You've learned to read the signs of the weather, to understand the rhythms of the earth beneath your feet. And through it all, you remain connected to the land, its harshness, its beauty, its unpredictability. As the day drags on, your thoughts drift again to the isolation you feel, the loneliness that seems to follow you from one trail to the next. The vastness of the land, the silence of the open range at times, it can feel suffocating. The world is so big, and you are so small. You wonder if anyone back home ever wonders what it's like out here, if they even remember you. But then you push those thoughts aside. This is your life now. The work must go on. There's no time for self-pity, no room for weakness. The herd depends on you, your fellow cowboys depend on you, and you depend on yourself. This life, hard as it is the one you've chosen, and there's no turning back. The weather in the Wild West is as much an adversary as it is a companion. The land is unforgiving, and the elements can change in the blink of an eye. You never know what to expect, but you always have to be prepared for the worst. It begins with a subtle shift, a slight coolness in the air, a change in the wind's direction. At first, it's nothing you can put your finger on, just a whisper of something to come. But, you've seen it enough times to recognize the signs. In the distance, the sky darkens, the wind picks up, stirring the dry grass and sending it swirling in all directions. Your horse senses the change before you do, its ears flicking nervously. The cattle seem restless, too, their low moos filling the air with a tense, uneasy sound. Within moments, the calm of the morning is shattered, the clouds roll in quickly, blotting out the sun and turning the world a dull gray. You squint against the wind, your hat pulled low to shield your eyes. Then, the first drop of rain hits your skin, cold and sudden. Within seconds, it turns from a light drizzle to a torrential downpour. The ground, dry and cracked only moments ago, begins to soften, turning to mud, making every step heavier. The cattle start to move more erratically, sensing the storm approaching. They're not accustomed to the rain. They feel vulnerable in the open, and that vulnerability makes them unpredictable. As the storm intensifies, you urge your horse to move faster, guiding the herd towards a sheltered area. The wind howls now, the rain stinging your face as you struggle to keep your balance on the saddle. The roar of the storm fills your ears, drowning out everything else. Visibility drops dramatically, the world around you reduced to a blur of wet earth and water-slicked cattle. The rain is relentless, and it feels as if it could go on forever. It soaks through your clothes, chilling your body to the core. The trail beneath you turns into a slippery mess of mud, making it almost impossible to keep the cattle in line. You push forward, urging your horse through the muck, hoping the storm will pass soon. But the land doesn't give you a break. The cattle are more skittish now, moving erratically, and that's when you hear a sudden, sharp cry from the herd. The cattle are panicking, and the stampede begins. In moments like these, the behavior of the cattle becomes the greatest threat. A single frightened steer can send the entire herd into a frenzy, and once that happens, there's little you can do to stop it. A stampede is one of the most terrifying events you could face on the trail. The ground shakes beneath you, the thunderous sound of hooves pounding against the earth rising to deafening levels. You can hear the panicked cries of the cattle as they break free from the herd, each one pushing forward in a desperate attempt to escape whatever is terrifying them. You grip the reins tighter, your heart racing as your horse instinctively picks up speed. You can feel the tension in its body, its muscles straining with the effort. But it's not enough. The cattle are moving faster now, the herd moving as one, as if in a single, collective panic. The earth is a blur beneath you as you urge your horse to cut through the herd, trying to separate the cows from the ones that are panicking. The air is thick with dust, and the world around you is a chaotic mass of movement. There's no time to think, only to act. The herd has broken free, and now it's up to you to regain control before they scatter into the wilderness. You yell, your voice hoarse from the wind, trying to guide the cattle, trying to bring them back together, but they are beyond your control now. The ground beneath you begins to tremble, and you hear the sound of hooves thundering in every direction. The cattle are running wild, their bodies pushing past you, and all you can do is steer your horse in the right direction, trying to keep your balance in the chaos. The stampede moves faster and faster, and you know that if you don't regain control soon, the herd will be lost. The wind picks up, carrying the dust and the rain in your face, making it almost impossible to see. The cattle's bodies move as a mass, and the sound of their pounding hooves fills your ears, drowning out everything else. For a moment it feels like the entire world is made of dust and chaos. Then, you hear a sharp cracker sound of a branch snapping, the herd veering off to one side. You act quickly, pulling your horse to the right, cutting the herd in half, and pushing them back in the direction you need them to go. It's a dangerous maneuver, but you have no choice. The stampede is already losing steam, and the herd is beginning to slow down. You've regained control, but it was close, too close. The dust begins to settle, the noise fades, and the world slowly returns to some semblance of calm. You look around, scanning the herd. The panic is over for now, but the trail has been disrupted, and the exhaustion from the stampede settles deep into your bones. You take a deep breath, your body still trembling from the rush of adrenaline. Your horse is covered in sweat, its sides heaving with the effort. The cattle, now slowly moving again, are still jittery, but the immediate danger has passed. You push them forward once more, the tension in the air slowly starting to dissipate. As the stampede settles, another challenge presents itself: the terrain. The landscape out here is as unforgiving as the weather, and it's not always a smooth ride. The land is rugged, with mountains rising in the distance, jagged and wide. There are valleys filled with thick, wet grass that can trip up the cattle, and stretches of rocky ground where the hooves of your horses and the cattle struggle to find firm footing. You ride along a narrow trail, winding through a rocky pass, the ground uneven and treacherous. Your horse picks its way carefully, its hooves slipping slightly on the loose stones. You feel the tension in its body, the way it shifts its weight, careful not to stumble. The trail is steep in places, the incline sharp and challenging. One wrong step could send you tumbling down the hillside, and the cattle would scatter in panic. You urge your horse forward, watching the cattle move slowly behind you. They, too, are finding it difficult to navigate the uneven terrain. The earth is loose in places, soft and muddy in others, and there are stretches of rocky ground that can break a cow's hoof if they aren't too careful. The pace is slower now as you guide the herds through this difficult stretch, every step measured and deliberate. It's a constant battle against the land. The sun is beginning to set now, casting long shadows across the rocky landscape. The air is cool, but the land beneath you is still warm from the heat of the day. Your horse's hooves crunch on the gravelly earth, and the sound is the only noise that breaks the silence of the wild. The cattle are still struggling, their slow movements echoing the effort it takes to navigate this unforgiving land. The steep incline gives way to a narrow ravine, where the trail becomes even more treacherous. You guide the cattle through it carefully, each step an exercise in patience. The cattle, nervous now, hesitate at the ravine's edge. You encourage them forward, your voice calm but firm, urging them to trust you. The challenge is constant, and the tension between control and chaos is palpable. Each step forward feels like a victory, but the journey is far from over. The unpredictability of the cattle is always present, even in the best of conditions. They can be difficult to control. They are driven by instincts, by fears, and by hunger. There is no telling what might set them off, whether it's a sudden noise, a shift in the wind, or an unexpected change in the terrain. It's a constant battle of will between the cowboy and the herd. You know the cattle well by now, their individual personalities, their tendencies, but there is always an element of unpredictability. One of the cows might suddenly break from the herd, darting off in the wrong direction. The entire herd might follow suit, breaking into a panic, scattering in all directions. And once they start running, it's almost impossible to bring them back. You ride close to the herd, your eyes scanning for any signs of unease. One of the steers looks nervous, its head turning sharply as it notices something in the distance. You can feel it. In the air, this might be the moment the herd breaks. You lean forward in your saddle, your body tense, your hand resting lightly on the reins, ready to take control. The cattle begin to stir, their movements becoming erratic. It's a subtle change, but you've seen it enough times to recognize the signs. You call out to the cattle, trying to steady them, but the tension is building. You move quickly, getting ahead of the herd, guiding them with your voice, your presence, and the steady hand of your horse. You feel the anxiety in the air, the sharp edge of fear that hangs over the herd. You urge them forward, urging them to trust in you, to follow the path you've set. The wind shifts, carrying the sound of something in the distance, and for a moment, the herd hesitates. But you've done this before. You know the rhythm. You know how to guide them through the chaos, and slowly, steadily, the herd calms, its erratic movements slowing, its nervousness easing. The storm has passed for now. A introduction to the story of lost gold in the sweeping, untamed lands of the West. Tales of riches buried in the wilderness echo through the years, passed from one settler to the next. From campfire to saloon to the back of a wagon, carried on the breath of men seeking fortune. From the moment gold was first discovered in the hills of California, the rush begat not just for gold itself, but for the idea of it, the hope of striking it rich, of finding something hidden, something no one else had discovered, consumed the hearts of many. It was the early settlers and the explorers who first spun the legends. They spoke of the lost gold mines, hidden away in secret valleys, or tucked into remote caves, scattered across the mountains. Some claimed to have found the riches, but always under mysterious circumstances. Either they died trying to return to civilization or vanished completely. The stories became part myth and part reality, passed down by those who heard them but never saw the treasure for themselves. The gold, they said, lay waiting for the right man, one daring enough to venture deep into the wilderness and claim it. Historical figures like James Marshall, the first man to discover gold in California, set the stage for the endless flood of prospectors who followed. But even after the initial gold rush faded, rumors continued to circulate about other hidden caches of gold. One of the most famous legends was of the Lost Dutchman's Mine, said to be somewhere in the Superstition Mountains of Arizona. Many claimed to have found it, only to die mysteriously or vanish without a trace. As the stories circulated, the places where the treasure might lie expanded. Some said the gold was buried in secret valleys, shielded by natural barriers like cliffs or thick forests. Others believed it could be hidden deep in riverbeds, waiting to be unearthed by the right man with the right tools. The stories grew, mingling fact with fiction, as men sat around fires or passed the time in saloons, spinning tales of buried treasure and untold riches. For the cowboy, these tales were intoxicating. They weren't just stories of adventure or exploration, they were stories of escape, of a way to change one's fate. This was a land where anyone could start over, where the riches of the earth could be found if one was willing to search long enough and hard enough. The myth of gold became more than a lure. It became a beacon of hope for those like the cowboy, who came to the West, not just for land, but for a new life. The cowboy had always heard the stories, but it wasn't until he came to the West that he truly understood the pull of such legends. When he first arrived, his mind was consumed by the idea of a new start, but deep down, he knew that he wasn't just running towards something. He was running from something, from a past that had left him burdened and weary. His family had been demanding, expectations heavy on his shoulders. The small, suffocating town he grew up in offered no room to breathe, no chance to carve out a future of his own. The burden of obligations to his family, to the land, had weighed him down, until there was no choice but to leave. The city's constant noise had driven him mad, and the emptiness of the quiet western plains, though it was initially unsettling, promised freedom, but that wasn't all. There was a personal failure that had never left his mind, a decision that still haunted him, a failed relationship, a broken promise, a choice made in haste that had cost him more than he could bear. Leaving had felt like an escape, but now that he was here, he had come to realize that running from the past was not as simple as crossing into a new territory. It was buried deep inside him, waiting to catch up. That was why the gold called to him, because it offered him hope, not just of wealth, but of redemption. The stories were about more than just treasure. They were about restarting his life, leaving behind the man he had been and becoming someone new. A man who could claim the land and the riches he had always been told were unreachable. Someone who could rise above his past and forge a future untethered by his mistakes. Every mile he rode, every hill he climbed, he did it not just for gold, but for the possibility of a different self. He was looking for something greater than gold. He was looking for freedom from the shackles of his own past, from the life he had left behind. The treasure, the legend of gold hidden deep in the wilderness, had become a way for him to prove to himself that he was worth something, that he could change, that he could find his place in this vast, unforgiving land. But with each mile that passed, the fear of the unknown crept in. The cowboy had been raised on stories of gold, but now, alone on the trail, he began to wonder if it was all just a myth. The weight of doubt began to press down on him, and he had moments where he felt like he was chasing something that could never be found. And if he didn't find it, what would be left? What would he have to show for all the effort, the pain, the distance traveled? Was the gold truly the answer? Or was it just another fantasy that would leave him empty once it had been reached? Each day, the cowboy rides, but it's no longer for the cattle. It's for the goldy elusive prize he believes can change his life. His movements are the same, a routine of daily survival, but it's taken on a new weight. The landscape around him, once so familiar, now feels larger, more oppressive. The ground is tough and uneven, with hills that rise up like ancient walls, blocking his way. Rocks and loose soil create unpredictable challenges, and the cattle, still moving slowly behind him, are but a reminder of the routine he once followed. Now, his focus is on the treasure, the hope that drives him to navigate this rugged land day in and day out. The weather changes as the days go on, and the heat of the sun becomes a constant companion. He can feel the sweat trickling down his back, his shirt soaked through by the time he stops for a break. His legs grow stiff from hours of riding, and his hands, raw from gripping the reins, ache from the constant tension. The land offers no relief. The hills, once majestic, now seem to rise in frustration, each one taller than the last. The rocks scrape against the horse's hooves, and the loose soil gives way beneath him. The mental toll of the search is heavier with each passing day. He begins to question his sanity, the endless distance stretching out before him. He has no map, no compass. There are only the stories, vague references to secret places no one can pinpoint. The further he rides, the more he feels like he's chasing a shadow. At night, when the cattle are resting and the fire flickers, the cowboy finds himself alone with his thoughts. He stares into the flames, watching the dance of the fire as it sways and shifts, much like his thoughts. What's the point of this? Is the gold real? Or is it just another story away to fill the long hours, with the hope of something better? His body aches, the constant saddle sores, the soreness in his shoulders, the blisters on his hands from holding the reins too tightly. His mind races, torn between the hope of finding something grand and the fear of wasting his life, chasing an illusion. He has no answers, just the endless ride, the rising sun, and the whisper of the wind as it tells him to keep going. Every night, he lies beneath the stars, the familiar sounds of the night surrounding him, and wonders what tomorrow will bring. He imagines the gold shiny bright, calling to him, but when his mind quiets, he knows it may never come. If not this treasure, what else? What's left? Would he return home, a failure? And then he wakes, the sunrise marking another day of the search, knowing that no matter what, he must continue. The land stretches out endlessly, but the calm of the early afternoon quickly shatters as the weather begins to change. It starts with a low rumble in the distance, so faint at first that you almost wonder if it's just a trick of the mind. But as the hours pass, the sky begins to darken, and the wind picks up, carrying with it the scent of rain and dust. The once warm, dry air becomes thick and oppressive, heavy with the promise of a storm. You squint into the distance, your eyes narrowing against the blinding sun. But the storm is coming too quickly to ignore. You press on, pushing your horse through the dry terrain. But the wind is relentless now, howling across the plains and kicking up loose rocks and debris. You glance back at the herd, but they are skittish, restless. and the tension is palpable. They feel the storm too, the way the temperature drops, the way the land shifts beneath them. The storm's arrival is abrupt, like a slap in the face, and the mood shifts instantly. Your heart quickens as the wind howls louder, kicking up dust so thick you can hardly see. Your eyes water as the sand stings your face, and you're forced to pull your scarf tighter around your neck, shielding your face from the bitter wind that now seems to carry the weight of the desert with it. The horse bucks slightly under you, nervous as it fights the oncoming gale. You grip the reins harder, trying to calm it, but the wind seems determined to break your focus. You urge the horse forward, but the world around you is becoming an unpredictable blur. The cattle are scattered, their usual placid behavior replaced by restlessness as they move away from the wind. Their low, frightened, bellowing echoes across the plains, but it is drowned out by the roar of the storm, a deafening roar that overwhelms all senses. You know the cattle need to be rounded up before the storm's full force hits, but the wildness of the elements makes it difficult to think clearly. The land, which just moments ago felt open and free, now feels like a dangerous trap, unforgiving, merciless, and closing in on you. The storm hits hard, the wind now pulling at your clothing, biting at your exposed skin. It's as if the earth itself is angry, ready to swallow you whole. There's no time to think. The herd, already moving in fits and starts, is now panicking. The dust turns into mud, the earth beneath your horse's hooves, slick and treacherous, but there's nowhere to seek shelter. The world is suddenly as harsh as it has ever been, raw, untamed, and impossible to control. You urge your horse forward, your body soaked through by the wind-driven rain, the earth beneath you turning to mud that sucks at your boots with each step. In the chaos of the storm, the time feels lost. You can feel the hours slipping away, wasted in the madness of the weather. You glance up at the sky, watching the clouds swirl in angry, unpredictable patterns. The gold you've been chasing, the promise of it, the hope it represented, suddenly feels miles away. The land is unforgiving, and this storm is just another reminder of that. As you fight against the elements, you wonder how long it will take before the journey becomes impossible to continue. Time slips by unnoticed, every second marked by the feeling of relentless urgency. The storm will pass, you know, but in the meantime, the distance between you and your goal feels larger than ever. How much time have you lost now? How much longer can you keep going? You find a small outcropping of rock that offers a slight reprieve from the wind, but it's a fleeting moment of shelter. The storm continues to rage on, and you can't help but feel the physical toll weighing on you. Your body, sore from the long ride, protests at every turn. Your legs are stiff, your back aches, and the sunburn on your neck is now an angry red, the skin tight and painful to the touch. Every movement is harder than the last. Your hands are raw, the skin cracking from the roughness of gripping the reins, and your knees feel as if they are about to give way beneath you. The dehydration is beginning to take its toll as well. Despite the rain, you can feel your throat dry, each breath sharp and painful. You thought you had enough water, but in the chaos of the storm, you realize how easily you could run out. The constant riding, the endless heat, and the physical exertion of keeping the cattle moving have drained your reserves. The horse is tired too, its breath coming in heavy, ragged bursts. You feel its weariness mirror your own. The sore muscles are the worst part. Every inch of your body feels like it's been worked beyond its limits, and it's hard to ignore the constant ache in your back, shoulders, and legs. The repetitive motions, the hours in the saddle, and the relentless ride are starting to take their toll. Each time you shift in the saddle, each time you urge the horse forward, the soreness feels deeper. The discomfort has become a constant companion, a reminder that this journey is not only a physical struggle, but an emotional one as well. You think back to earlier days on the trail when you felt stronger, more determined. You had a sense of purpose, of forward momentum. But now, every mile feels like an insurmountable effort. Each day blurs into the next to cattle, the terrain, and the ever-present wind and dust. The world feels like it's closing in, as if the land itself is fighting back against your intrusion. You force yourself to keep going, to ignore the weariness in your bones, but it's hard to keep your mind clear when your body is so tired. Your head grows foggy from the exhaustion. The heat still presses down on you, even as the storm rages. The sunburn on your face is stinging now, the salt from your sweat and the sting of the rain only worsening the pain. The more you try to push forward, the more you can feel the grip of exhaustion tightening around your chest. The journey is no longer just about cattle or treasure, it's about survival. You question why you're still going. Is it the goal that drives you, or have you just become stubborn in the face of hardship? The weight of mental fog settles deeper with every step. You can't remember the last time you had a full night's sleep. The blisters on your hands have now turned into painful sores, and yet you can't stop. You push through the pain, the discomfort, and the uncertainty, hoping that somewhere ahead you'll find the reward that has eluded you for so long. The storm rages around you, the wind howling in your ears. And in this moment of absolute isolation, the cowboy's thoughts begin to shift inward. The loneliness of the trail has never felt more profound. Out here, there is no one to speak to, no one to share the weight of the journey. The silence, usually comforting, now presses in around you like a heavy weight. You are truly alone. There are no other voices, no other people to distract you from the endless hours of thought. Every step you take on the trail feels like it's measured by time lost, by decisions made in isolation. The land stretches endlessly before you, a vast emptiness that matches the emptiness inside. You think about the life you left behind, the family you abandoned. What were they doing now? Did they even think of you? Did they wonder where you had gone? Did they miss you? Or was it just another chapter in their lives, easily turned, quickly forgotten? These thoughts settle heavily in your chest, and the more you think about them, the more you question your choice. The decision to leave, to come out here, feels like it's been defined by escape rather than hope. You ran because you couldn't bear the weight of expectations, of obligations. But now, with no one but the land and the wind, you wonder if running was the right choice. Did you leave because you needed to, or was it because you were afraid of facing what was left behind? The idea of gold, once so promising, now feels hollow in your chest. Will it bring you peace? Will it solve the questions that have been gnawing at you since the moment you left? Or will it be just another empty pursuit, like everything else? You've chased after something tangible, something that could change your life, but perhaps the truth is that nothing will change unless you make it. You think of the gold. You think of the gold and wonder, was it worth it? You start to ask yourself, if this treasure is what you need, or if it's something you created in your own mind as a way to escape, as a way to validate the hardships you've endured. Was it the gold that was important? Or was it the idea that finding it would give you a reason for the journey? As the rain slows and the winds begin to die down, you sit there, staring out at the rugged terrain ahead of you. The storm has passed, but the storm inside you is still brewing. The gold might be out there, but more pressing than the gold is the question of what you are really seeking. The journey has stretched on for weeks now, the days blending together in a haze of exhaustion, disappointment, and endless riding. The cowboy had come to the west to seek treasure, but as time wore on, the idea of finding the legendary gold seemed to slip further out of his grasp, like a dream fading with the first light of dawn. The land, which had once seemed full of promise and possibility, now feels vast and indifferent, a place where even hope can survive the weight of physical fatigue and mental strain. His body is failing him. Each mile feels like an insurmountable effort, and the weariness in his bones is unlike anything he's ever known. His legs are stiff, his back is a massive pain, and the constant rubbing of his saddle has left deep sores on his thighs. His lips are cracked from dehydration, his skin burned and raw from exposure to the relentless sun. The blisters on his hands, once a small inconvenience, have grown into painful sores, each one a reminder of how much he has endured. The exhaustion has settled deep in his muscles, making every movement feel heavy, as though his body is pushing against a force much stronger than it can withstand. The mental fog is just as pervasive. His thoughts are slow, clouded by fatigue, and the weight of For days now, the only constant has been the endless ride. The same dry landscape stretching out in front of him. Always more of the same, without any signs of what he came here to find. The gold, the dream that has driven him forward for so long, now feels like a fading memory, something that might never have been real in the first place. He starts to wonder, was it all just a story? A myth passed down by men who never knew the truth themselves? Was it just a way to fill the silence, to give hope to the hopeless? There's a moment, in the thick of the dry desert heat, when he can no longer deny the gnawing feeling of failure. The gold feels farther away than ever, a distant memory he's been chasing across the land. He's been out here for so long, with no success, no proof that any of this is worth it. The cowboy pulls his horse to a stop beneath the harsh light of the midday sun, his breath heavy and labored, his eyes are bleary, his vision swaying, and for a moment he just stands there, staring blankly at the horizon. His mind begins to unravel. The self-doubt settles in like a thick fog, choking out any shred of confidence he once had. He stares at the barren land around him, feeling more isolated than ever. What if the gold never existed? What if he's been chasing a lie? In this moment of despair, he dismounts slowly, his muscles protesting, and stands still, swaying slightly. The earth beneath him feels like it could collapse at any moment, as though the very ground is rejecting him. His knees are weak, and he leans on his horse for support, feeling the weight of his body pulling him down. It's as if the land itself is conspiring against him, pulling him deeper into the muck of failure. The storm inside him is as fierce as the one outside, and for the first time since he started this journey, he wonders if he can go on. The mental toll has reached its peak, and he questions his sanity. "What am I doing out here?" he mutters to himself, the words barely audible over the sound of the wind. What's the point of all this? His horse whinnies softly, shifting beneath him, as if offering some small comfort. But the cowboy can't shake the feeling of being utterly alone, both on the trail and in his thoughts. The dream of gold has turned into a cruel joke. His body is at the breaking point, and his spirit is faltering. But even as he stands there, at his lowest, something inside him refuses to let go. A flicker of defiance stirs within him, a refusal to accept defeat. After all, what is the point of having come this far if he turns back now? The exhaustion, the pain, the loneliness, it's all part of the journey. He knows he can't quit. Not yet. Not when there's still a chance, however slim, that the treasure is out there. With great effort, he mounts his horse again, his legs unsteady, but he spurs the animal forward. The sun is still high in the sky, but for the cowboy, it feels like the end of the world. The gold may be an illusion, but he has to keep searching. He can't stop now. Not when he's already come this far. For days, the cowboy pushes forward, the tension between hope and despair swirling inside him. The physical pain of riding through the heat is unbearable at times, and his muscles scream for rest. But his mind refuses to let him stop. The cattle, weary from the journey, begin to slow their pace, and the cowboy's focus shifts between keeping the herd moving and maintaining his own resolve. Then, one afternoon, as he guides the cattle across a dry riverbed, something catches his eye. It's small, nearly hidden beneath the dirt and rocks, but there's something about it that makes his heart race. The cowboy stops his horse and dismounts, his legs shaking from the effort. He kneels down, pushing aside the loose rocks, his hands trembling as he digs deeper into the earth. The sun beats down mercilessly, but in this moment, it feels as though time has stopped. He uncovers a fragment of a map, worn and tattered by years of exposure. The paper is fragile, crumbling in places, but the markings are still legible. His breath catches in his throat as he examines the piece of paper. Could this be it? The map is incomplete, torn in several places, but there's a marking on it that suggests a location, the edge of a mountain range, a spot in the wilderness he hasn't reached yet. A new hope ignites in his chest, but with it, there's also a wave of doubt. This clue, this scrap of map could lead him to the treasure, or it could be another dead end. He doesn't know. But for the first time in days, he feels a renewed sense of purpose. His tired eyes widen, his heart pounding, as he holds the map carefully, fearing the worst, that it could slip through his fingers like everything else he's searched for. He stands up slowly, looking around at the desolate landscape. The storm has passed, but the winds are still heavy with dust and uncertainty. His thoughts race as he rides onward. The hope that had been crushed under the weight of exhaustion now surges back into his chest, but it's tempered with skepticism. Could this be real? Could the gold be closer than he ever imagined? His mind battles between hope and doubt, but there's no time to waste. This map, this clue, might be the break he's been waiting for. The discovery of the map reignites the cowboy's drive, but the physical strain is beginning to take its toll. His body is already on the edge, his muscles are sore, his mind clouded by fatigue, but there's no turning back now. The clue has given him something to hold on to, but it also puts him in a race against time. The cattle continue their slow progress, but his horse is already growing tired, struggling to keep pace with the urgency in the cowboy's heart. As he presses on, the landscape grows more treacherous. The path becomes steeper, and the rocky hills seem to stretch endlessly before him. With every passing hour, his physical condition worsens. His skin is burned and raw from the sun, and his body is racked with pain. His vision blurs from the constant strain, and he feels his mental energy waning. But there's something deeper, something primal, that keeps pushing him forward. Every mile feels like an eternity, but the possibility of the treasure drives him to ignore the physical pain. Time is slipping away as the days drag on, but the gold is still just out of reach. The cowboy forces himself to keep going, even as his body begins to scream for rest. With each passing day, the sense of urgency grows. The map is a clue, yes, but it's also a reminder that the gold is still out there, waiting to be found. But the more the cowboy pushes forward, the more the doubt creeps back in. What if the treasure isn't real? What if the search is just another chase after an illusion? He tries to shake these thoughts from his mind, but they persist, feeding the growing sense of weariness that settles over him. The hope that had fueled him for so long is beginning to give way to skepticism, and with each step forward, the road ahead seems more uncertain than ever. The journey to the gold mine has stretched on longer than the cowboy could have ever anticipated. What once seemed like a distant dream, a treasure that could change his life, is now an almost oppressive weight on his weary shoulders. The sun has become his constant companion, beating down relentlessly upon his already sunburned skin. His horse, too, is struggling under the strain of the endless miles, its gait slower, more deliberate with each passing day. Yet, despite the exhaustion, they continue, the cowboy and his horse both driven by something more than just survival. They are chasing something intangible, something that may not even exist. The cowboy feels the pull of his goal, the promise of gold, and yet, as he gets closer to the location of the mine, an uncomfortable conflict stirs within him. What does it mean to find the gold? What would it truly change? Could he leave behind the life of hardship, the days filled with toil and solitude, and find something better in the form of riches? Or has it all been nothing more than a fool's chase? Every night, beneath the stars, he lies awake, staring up at the vastness of the sky, feeling a mixture of hope and anxiety twist together in his chest. Will the gold bring him peace? Or will it be just another fleeting moment of satisfaction, as shallow and fleeting as everything else he's sought? The thought gnaws at him, and each night as he stares into the distance he wonders if the treasure will be enough. Enough to fill the emptiness inside him, enough to wash away the regret and the loneliness that has followed him since the day he left home. His body aches, his back, shoulders, and legs sore from the unrelenting physical labor of riding and guiding the cattle through increasingly treacherous terrain. The fatigue has taken over his muscles, and with it, a deep sense of frustration. What if all this is for nothing? What if the gold isn't real? What if he spends all this time, all this energy, only to find that the treasure was just another myth, a fantasy, a lie designed to lure men like him out into the wilderness, only to leave them empty-handed? The cowboy's thoughts become darker, spiraling into a pit of sorrow. The closer he gets to the destination, the more his doubts intensify. His mind races with questions. What if the gold brings more problems than it solves? What if it only compounds the emptiness he feels, only to leave him disappointed, as so many other things have? What if success is not the answer? What if the gold only serves to further separate him from the life he truly wants, or the person he's become over these endless days of searching? He can feel ether tension between his desire for success and his fear of failure, growing sharper with every mile. The closer he gets to the mine, the more his hope transforms into a paralyzing fear, a fear that the discovery of gold might only reveal the void he's been running from. Is he truly seeking treasure, or is it the promise of a new life that's been driving him all this time? The storm of emotions becomes nearly unbearable, and he is torn between two opposing forces: the urge to find the treasure, to prove himself, to leave behind everything that's weighed him down, and the fear of what success might bring. The closer he gets to the mine, the more he realizes that it might not be the gold that he's searching for, but rather the hope for redemption, the hope that something out there could offer him the peace he has been chasing for so long. After days of grueling travel, fighting through the mental and physical exhaustion, the cowboy finds himself standing at the mouth of a narrow canyon, the entrance to the hidden valley he's been searching for, the final clue from the map of vague marking. Now Fedeta's led him here, to this place that feels both familiar and foreign, as if he's walked into a legend. His heart races as he dismounts, and he walks carefully toward the canyon entrance. The tension in the air is thick, as though the land itself is holding its breath, waiting for the cowboy to make the final move. The light is dimming, the sun sinking lower in the sky, casting long, jagged shadows across the rocky walls. The land feels ancient here, untouched by time, and yet it feels like something is waiting for him to discover. He begins to move deeper into the canyon, each step deliberate, though his body is tired, his muscles aching from days of riding and searching. But, in this moment, all his doubts, his fears, and his frustrations fade away. There, in the ground beneath him, is a mound of earth, half hidden beneath some large rocks. His heart pounds in his chest as he approaches it, feeling a mixture of excitement and hesitation. Could this be it? Is this the treasure he's been chasing all this time? With trembling hands, he begins to dig, pushing the rocks aside, feeling the weight of the moment pressing in around him. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, He uncovers a wooden chest, weathered and old, its edges worn by time. He pauses for a moment, staring at it, feeling the weight of the years that have passed. The men who came before him, and the legend of the gold. He opens the chest with great effort, the sound of the lid creaking on its hinges. Inside, he finds not gold, not riches, but a small collection of tools. Old mining equipment, rusted and faded, and a few scraps of paper. There is no gold. There is no treasure. For a moment, time stands still. The cowboy feels the weight of disappointment settle over him like a heavy blanket. This isn't what he imagined. This isn't the gold he's been dreaming about. He kneels there, the chest open before him, and feels an overwhelming sense of emptiness wash over him. He wants to scream, to shout at the world, at the land, at the legends that led him here. But he doesn't. Instead, he sits back on his heels, staring at the items in the chest. The tools, the remnants of men who came before him, who also searched and failed, are now his burden to bear. There is no treasure here, just remnants of a lifelong past, a life spent chasing after something that was never truly meant to be. But in this moment of realization, something begins to shift inside him. The disappointment is still there, but it begins to fade, replaced by something else, something deeper. Peace. The gold he was searching for was never about wealth. It was never about finding treasure. It was about the journey itself, the struggle, the solitude, the endless hours of doubt and self. It was about the lessons learned, the strength built through hardship, and the understanding that sometimes the search for something outside yourself only leads you back to who you are. He rises slowly, feeling the weight of the chest in his hands, but not as a burden. The real treasure wasn't the gold or the riches. It was the strength he had found within himself, the resilience that had carried him through the harshest days. He had learned through the journey that peace wasn't something to be found in a chest or a treasure chest. It was something to be found within himself, something that came from accepting the life he had chosen and finding contentment in the search itself. With the setting sun casting its final rays on the horizon, he closes the chest. The gold may have been a myth, but the peace he has found is real. The cowboy sits atop his horse, looking out across the rugged land that stretches infinitely before him. The sun has dipped low, casting the land in a warm, golden glow, as though the world itself is now acknowledging the completion of his long, winding search. The gold, the treasure that once burned in his chest like a relentless fire, is now nothing more than a mythic mirage. In the distance that he chased with all his might, only to find it slip away like smoke through his fingers. In its place, however, lies something far more profounder, quiet peace that he had not known existed. The land before him is no longer an endless desert of struggle. It is a place of profound connection. He is no longer just passing through it. He is now part of it, as much a part of the terrain as the rugged hills, the dry riverbeds, and the sharp, unforgiving winds that carve the land into shapes that tell the story of time itself. For a long time, the cowboy believed the gold was the key to his salvation and escape from the loneliness of the trail, a way to leave behind the weight of his past mistakes and regrets. He thought that finding the treasure would be the end of his journey, that the riches would somehow fill the void within him, giving him a purpose, a reason to continue. But now, as he gazes out at the sprawling wilderness, he realizes that the search for gold was never about gold at all. The real wealth he's accumulated was not in buried treasure or precious metal. It was in the lessons he's learned along the way, in the discipline he's developed, and in the independence that has become his most valuable possession. He thinks about the man he was when he first set out on this journey, the man full of hope, driven by the promise of riches and a new life. Back then, he was running away from something, chasing after a dream of escape, thinking that the West held the answers to all his problems. Now, he understands that the West was never meant to solve his issues. Instead, it was a teacher, a harsh yet nurturing force that forced him to confront his own weaknesses, doubts, and fears. The endless plains, the rough mountains, the storms that battered him, they all played their part in shaping him into something new. The West that once seemed like a vast, untamed wilderness, a place full of potential riches and adventure, now feels like a mirror to his soul. It is raw, unrelenting, and unforgiving, just like the man he was when he first arrived. But just as the land tests the people who try to tame it, it also shapes them, forcing them to either bend or break. The cowboy, in his search for the gold, has learned the true cost of the land's riches. It demands not only strength, but resilience, humility, and an acceptance of the things that are beyond one's control. The gold, he now realizes, was never meant to be found. It wasn't a treasure for one man to claim, nor was it a prize that could be bought or earned. The journey itself, the struggles, the hardships, the solitude was the true treasure. The West offered him something far more valuable than gold could ever provide. It gave him a chance to face his deepest fears, to live on his own terms, and to build a life defined not by wealth, but by self-reliance and resilience. As he rides through the quiet evening, the cowboy reflects on the stillness of the land. The sound of the wind rustling through the dry grasses is the only noise, the only reminder of the untouched wilderness around him. This land, which once seemed a place of endless isolation, now feels like a home. He is no longer an outsider. He is woven into the fabric of the West, just as the land is woven into the story of his life. The cowboy thinks about the men who came before him, the ones who died searching for treasure, for gold. Some of them lost their lives in this very land, swallowed by the vastness of it all, chasing after something they thought would change their lives. The cowboy now knows that true change isn't about finding something outside himself. It's about transforming within, accepting the journey, and realizing that the search for gold was always a search for meaning. There are moments fleeting but powerful when the cowboy wonders, was it worth it? Was the journey, with all its struggles, failures, and moments of doubt, worth the price? The gold was never the answer, but the question remains. What did the West offer him? Did it give him the peace he was seeking? Or was he simply chasing a dream, running after something that would never satisfy him? As he reflects on the hardships of the journey, the long days, the unbearable heat, the lonely nights by the fire, the cowboy realizes that the answer is more complex than he ever thought. The gold may have been a myth, but the lessons he learned on the trail were real. His search for wealth has been replaced by something far more valuable, self-understanding. The treasure he sought wasn't in the chest of gold, hidden deep in the earth, but in the resilience he had built over the months, in the mental toughness forged through countless days of struggle. The strength he has gained in the face of adversity is the true reward of his journey. He continues on his path, no longer burdened by the need to prove anything to himself or to the world. The treasure, now, is in the life he has chosen to live, a life that doesn't require gold or riches, only the peace of knowing that he has made it this far. The cowboy will continue to live in the West, but he now understands that it isn't about escaping his past. It's about embracing who he is, where he's been, and the person he has become. The cowboy's hand rests lightly on the reins, his gaze fixed on the horizon, where the sun sets in a burst of orange and gold. The world before him is just as vast as it was when he first arrived, but he sees it differently now. He is no longer the same man who rode into the West with a mind full of dreams of treasure. Now, he is a man shaped by the land, by the struggles, by the choices he has made, and the lessons he has learned. He has changed not in the way he expected, but in a deeper, more meaningful way. His journey was never about gold. It was about self-reliance, about learning to survive, and about finding peace in the midst of hardship. The gold was a symbol of something greater, a representation of the hope and the belief that something out there could fill the void he had been running from. But now, he knows that the void was never meant to be filled by treasure. It was meant to be filled by accepting who he is, by embracing his place in the world, and by learning to appreciate the land that has shaped him. As the stars begin to twinkle above him, the cowboy feels the weight of his journey lift. The gold is gone, but in its place is a new understanding that true wealth doesn't come from riches, but from the land, from the independence to make one's own choices, and from the self-discipline to face the challenges of life without relying on external validation. He may not have found the treasure he sought, but he has found something far more valuable. Peace. The cowboy rides on, the cattle moving steadily behind him. His path has changed, and so has he. The treasure hunt may have ended, but the cowboy's journey continues. Now, he rides not for gold, but for the simple freedom of the open trail. The West is no longer just a place to escape. It is home, and with each passing day, he grows more at peace with his decision to remain here. He will continue the life of a cowboy, but it is no longer driven by a quest for fortune. It is driven by the peace he has found within himself. Perhaps the gold was never meant for him. Perhaps it was always meant to be a lesson, a reminder that the greatest wealth lies not in what you find, but in who you become along the way. And with that understanding, the cowboy rides into the unknown, no longer chasing treasure, but finding fulfillment in the quiet, enduring presence of the land beneath him. The endless horizon of the Wild West is slowly replaced by the signs of civilization, a stark contrast to the wide, open expanses the cowboy has known for so long. His eyes narrow as he approaches the frontier town, the dusty roads stretching out before him, the mountains looming behind, and the distant silhouette of the town's structures coming into view. The land here is still rugged, still wild, but something has shifted. The isolation he has known for so long is about to give way to something very different. The cowboy slows his horse as he crosses into the fringes of the town, feeling the dust from the road sticking to his clothes, his face covered in a fine layer of dirt. The rusted signs of civilization, wooden planks, poorly constructed buildings begin to take shape in front of it. The saloon's creaky sign, swaying in the wind, is one of the first signs of human life that catches his eye. The long stretches of wilderness are slowly replaced by dusty streets and simple, low-built cabins, their wooden walls weathered by the harsh element. The ground beneath him shifts from the loose gravel of the trail to more solid earth, worn down by carts, wagons, and feet that have trod this land over the years. The first sounds that reach his ears are faint, but unmistakable: the hum of life, the squeak of a wagon wheel turning, the clink of metal from the blacksmith's forge, the distant murmur of conversation. It's a world he's heard of, but never quite lived in, a town that has been carved out of the wilderness, making it as much a testament to human will as it is a mark of the fragility of civilization. In the distance, the flicker of light from oil lamps draws his gaze toward the saloon, where the laughter and chatter spilled out into the cool evening air, blending with the faint scent of whiskey and the sharp temps of freshly struck iron from the blacksmith's forge. As the cowboy rides in, his horse's hooves strike the road with a hollow echo, but there's something else that clings to him now: the weight of social expectations. The wide open spaces have always been his comfort zone. They represented freedom, a life that required only himself to navigate. But now, the sight of the town and its structures represents a challenger life that's lived not in isolation, but in connection, with rules and boundaries, and an unspoken obligation to fit in. There is a shift in the air as the cowboy rides further into the town. The freedom of the open plains, where the only boundaries are those set by the land itself, feels like a lifetime ago. Out there, everything was clear. The days were simple, defined by the tasks at hand and the rhythms of the land. In the wilderness, he was the master of his time, his own man, where the land was as untamed as his soul. But as he rides into the town, the world becomes something different, something less predictable and more confined. The streets are narrow and seem to close in on him. Buildings rise around him, cutting off the expansive view he had once taken for granted. People move about with purpose, some rushing past him, others simply going about their business, exchanging words with neighbors, their conversations punctuated by the occasional laughter or the clinking of coins in the marketplace. The cowboy feels like an outsider, despite the fact that he is, in many ways, one of them, just another traveler coming to town. But the separation is real. It is not just the land that makes him feel different, it is his place within this bustling system, this structured life that exists within walls, both literal and metaphorical. The cowboy thinks about how the wild has always represented something pure to him, a place where men could stand alone, without the pressures of others telling them what to do. It was a place where you could go days without speaking to anyone, and yet, that solitude was never lonely, it was empowering. Here, in the town, people matter: their words, their actions, their relationships. There is no space to be alone in this world, not like the freedom he used to know on the open trail. The cowboy's sense of self-reliance is challenged by this new world, where people are woven together, connected by the routines and rhythms of the town. The sounds of the town reach the cowboy's ears as he makes his way deeper into the streets. The clinking of glasses in the saloon, the laughter that occasionally spills out into the streets, and the sound of horses' hooves pounding on the earth. This is life in motion. The town hums with energy, a place where people are bound by the same daily rhythms, moving in harmony or in conflict with one another. He sees the blacksmith, a heavy-set man with soot-covered arms, hammering at the glowing metal on his anvil, sweat dripping down his forehead. There's a distinct clink-clink of the hammer striking iron, the sound a reminder of the manual labor and grit it takes to keep this town alive. The cowboy is keenly aware of how different his life has been, and how different he now feels in the presence of others. The men here seem to have purpose in their work. Their labor more than just the daily grind, it's part of the community's fabric. They're not just building homes, they're building something greater. A few townsfolk stop by the general store, exchanging casual pleasantries with a shopkeeper, and the smell of freshly baked bread wafts into the street, making the cowboy's stomach rumble. He hasn't had a decent meal in days, but even the prospect of food does little to ease the weight he feels settling in his chest. His instincts pull him toward the saloon, the one place where men like him, loners and drifters, are sometimes welcomed, sometimes ignored. As he moves toward the saloon, he He sees men gathered around the fire pit outside, playing cards, laughing, and shouting to each other across the table. They seem at ease in a way that feels foreign to him. They don't have the same weariness etched into their face. The hardship of the trail is not written in their eyes. They've settled into their lives, and in their eyes, there's a sense of security that the cowboy doesn't share. These men, though they may be rough around the edges, have found something the cowboy hasn't: belonging. As he enters the saloon, the energy shifts again. The laughter is louder now, the music of a piano playing in the background, adding a certain lightness to the air. The bartender waves at him from behind the bar, a welcoming smile on his face. Though it's clear the cowboy's presence here will be noted. The cowboy takes a seat at the corner table, his eyes scanning the room, taking in the small town energy that surrounds him. The patrons have been here before. They are familiar with the routines, the social bonds, and the unspoken rules that govern their lives. The cowboy, on the other hand, feels the weight of isolation, the separation between himself and these people who seem to understand how the world works in a way that he never has. His gruffness is his armor, but in the town, it feels almost like an invitation for scrutiny. He doesn't belong here, not in the way these men do. They have roots, they have families, they have lives that revolve around commitment to the land and each other. For the cowboy, the commitment has always been to the land itself, to the solitary life of the trail. This is a different world, one where human connections matter more than ever. And in this world, the cowboy realizes his loneliness is amplified. The saloon door creaks open as the cowboy steps inside, his boots heavy against the wooden floorboards. He pauses just inside the threshold, the door swinging shut behind him with a dull thud. The cool air from the outside hits his face briefly, before he is swallowed by the thick heat of the saloon. The smell of tobacco, whiskey, and sweat lingers in the air, a reminder of how long it has been since he has shared a space with people like these. For a moment, the sounds of laughter, clinking glasses, and the sharp rattle of poker chips fill his ears, and he is immediately reminded of how different this world is from the one he has been living in for so long. The people here are polished, their clothes not caked with the same dirt and dust he's been wearing for days. They walk with a grace that feels out of place next to his rough gait. His dusty leather gear and weather-beaten face stand in sharp contrast to the soft cotton shirts and well-kept boots of the townsfolk. The cowboy's entrance doesn't go unnoticed. Eyes turn toward him, some curious, some indifferent. He's accustomed to the feeling of being watched, but here, it's different. There's a sense of scrutiny that he hasn't felt in years, like he's an anomaly in a world that has its own set of rules, its own expectations. He adjusts the brim of his hat, trying to cover the discomfort rising in his chest, but it doesn't help. The whispers begin almost immediately, quiet murmurs among the people at the bar and at the tables, as if they're trying to figure out who he is or why he's here. He knows the look. He has been given it countless times by people who don't understand the wanderer's life, who can comprehend why anyone would choose the loneliness of the open trail over the order and comfort of a town like this. Here, human interaction is normal. Community is the foundation. To them, he's nothing more than an outsider, a stranger who doesn't belong. His gruff demeanor, honed over years of solitude, only makes him more of a mystery. The way he stands there, stoic and unbothered, feels like a rejection of everything they've built in this town. The cowboy's discomfort grows as he moves further into the saloon. The chatter of the townsfolk fills the space, an unending stream of conversation. He listens to the settlers as they speak with each other, their voices soft yet confident. They talk about their homes, the land they've cultivated, the cattle trade they've established. There's comfort in their words, a sureness about the world they've created. They're making plans, discussing their family businesses, long-term investments, and childbirth. These topics are so far removed from anything the cowboy has ever thought about. One man at the bar, a rancher, laughs heartily as he tells the man next to him about the difficulty of keeping his herd together through the changing seasons. Been working on the fence line all week, he says, wiping a hand across his brow. The rain's been good this year, but we'll see how it holds. Cattle don't take kindly to changes, always need a steady hand to keep him in line. Another man, sitting at a table near the window, discusses his crops. Got the corn in the ground early this year, he says, with pride. Good season, if it holds up. If the weather stays decent, we should have enough to see us through the winter. His wife nods approvingly, adding, the garden's looking better this year too. We'll have enough food for the winter if the wild Stanty take it first. The cowboy listens to these simple concerns, and something stirs within him. Farm life, ranching, family plans. These are things he has never known in the way these men do. They speak with such certainty, such confidence, about a life that is steady, rooted. The idea of settling down, of investing in cattle trading or farming in a fixed place, seems to undermine everything he spent his life avoiding. For him, freedom is not about owning land or raising crops, it's about the ability to move, to roam, and to make his own decisions without being tethered to a community. The cowboy's idea of success is nothing like theirs. They find fulfillment in these routines, these small goals, the building of families, the passing down of land. For him, purpose has always been about survival, about making it through the next day without commitment to anything but himself. As the cowboy settles into his seat, the conversation around him continues, flowing naturally from one subject to another, and the words drift toward something familiar: ranching troubles. A man near the bar leans toward his companion, his voice low but urgent. Those cattle are getting too restless. We've been losing them along the river. The flood's been too much. It is hard to keep them all together when the water has been rising so high. The cowboy's ears prick at the mention of the cattle, and for a moment, his attention is fully on the conversation. He feels a pang of guilt for leaving the herd behind, the same cattle he once looked after, the animals that had been his companions on the trail. As the man continues, the cowboy's thoughts drift. The weight of his isolation suddenly feels heavier. These men have families to return to, goals to strive for. They are building something with meaning. He can see it now, how the ranchers, the settlers, are working towards something far more solid than the elusive gold he once sought. In the saloon, these men talk about living, about the challenges of the land, but also about the satisfaction that comes from a life well lived, a life tied to the earth and its cycles. For a moment, the cowboy is swept away by the thought of what they have: a life where meaning comes from the land and family, a life where wealth doesn't mean riches or treasure, but roots. Could he ever be part of this? Could he fit into a world where life revolves around consistency and community? He looks at the men around him, their faces worn with hard work but softened by the contentment that comes from the lives they've rebuilt. The voice of the rancher cuts through his reverie. "You ever feel like we've got a good thing going here?" the man says, turning toward the cowboy. "The land's been kind to us, and the weather's been steady this year. Hard work, sure, but look at what it brings. A house, a home, a family." The cowboy looks at the rancher, his mind swirling with thoughts of what he's given up. A house, a home, a family. These are things that feel as distant to him now as the gold he once searched for. He wonders if the rancher truly understands what it means to live without those things. What would it be like, he wonders, to have a place to return to have roots in the earth and in people? But as quickly as the thought enters his mind, it leaves. The cowboy knows he cannot stay, not in a place like this. The freedom of the open trail, the endless space, the feeling of unpredictability and self-sufficiency, these are things that define him. This life, the settler's life, would never be enough. He cannot surrender his independence, even for the sense of belonging that these men seem to have. Still, the loneliness stirs deep inside him. He tries to ignore it, but it clings to him like the dust on his clothes. The cowboy can't help but wonder, have the settlers found fulfillment, or are they simply accepting a life dictated by circumstances, by what's been handed to them? The gold may have been a myth, but is this life really any better? The cowboy sits at the far corner of the saloon, his back to the wall, as he watches the townspeople go about their business. He listens to the soft murmur of voices, the clink of glasses, and the occasional rattle of poker chips. The energy in the room is warm and inviting, but to him, it feels like a distant hum. The cowboy leans forward, his elbows resting on the rough wood of the table, his brow furrowed in thought. The constant thrum of activity in the saloon is unsettling, so unlike the silence he has grown accustomed to on the trail. Here, everything has its place. Everyone has a role. It's a world of connection, where community is the foundation, and where every person's purpose is clear. But for the cowboy, purpose has always been fluid. He glances at the men around him, their laughter rising above the murmur of conversation. They seem to exist within a structure, a social order he doesn't understand but is drawn to nonetheless. It's strange, this pull he feels toward the settlers' life, the comfort of shared routines, the bond of family, the promise of roots that sink deep into the land. These are things he's spent his life running from, seeking only freedom. Freedom to roam, to be independent, to let the horizon stretch before him without the weight of expectation or duty. But now, as he sits in the corner of the saloon, watching the townsfolk live their steady lives, A sense of longing rises in his chest, a longing he has never fully acknowledged before. The cowboy stirs his drink, the ice clinking softly in the glass, but his mind is elsewhere. Is freedom truly what he desires? Or does it come with a cost that's too high to bear? Out there in the wilderness, he has always been alone. There's a certain beauty in that, a peace in solitude. But now, he finds himself questioning if solitude is enough. Is the independence he holds so dear worth the isolation it brings? Or would he, for once, feel something more by being part of something greater than himself, a community? A family, a group of people whose lives are intertwined by common purpose. He recalls the lonely nights spent under the stars, alone with only his thoughts and the wind. The days blurred together in a haze of miles, the cattle to guide, the trail to follow. The quiet of the land was something he had always found comforting. But now, here in the town, surrounded by people who have chosen a different life, he feels something he's long avoided: the pull of connection. The life of a settler seems to promise more than just work and routine. It offers belonging, something the cowboy never truly had. But to belong, he would have to give up the very thing that defines him, his independence. As the cowboy sits, the warmth of the saloon fading into the cool shadows of his mind, his thoughts wander back to a time before the endless trail. He remembers the sound of children's laughter echoing through the open window, the smell of fresh-baked bread wafting from the kitchen. He remembers his mother's voice, soft and loving, calling him to dinner after a long day's work in the fields. The memory of his father, with his steady hands and patient eyes, teaching him how to use a plow, how to build a fence, how to tend to the land with care. He remembers the day he left, how the town seemed to fade behind him, becoming a distant memory as he rode into the unknown. The ache in his chest as he looked back, knowing that once he left, there would be no return. His heart still feels the weight of that decision, the guilt that he's carried with him ever since. Had he made the right choice? Was leaving his family, his home, his roots, really the best thing for him? His mother's face still lingers in his thoughts. She'd begged him to stay, to settle down, to help with the family farm, to live a life grounded in community. She'd spoken of future generations, of grandchildren running across the fields, of the legacy they would leave behind. And yet, here he is alone, in a saloon, surrounded by people who have built their own families, their own legacy. What did he leave behind? The cowboy's hand tightens around the glass. He's been chasing something for so long, something that feels more like escape than freedom. The people in this town have something he doesn't: the foundation of a life, the stability of a home, the comfort of shared responsibility. And yet, as he watches the settlers' conversations unfold, something stirs in him. Could he have had both? Could he have stayed, found peace, built a life with his own two hands? Or was this life of the wanderer the only life that truly suited him? The memories of family, of roots, of belonging, they haunt him now more than ever. As the cowboy turns his attention back to the conversation around him, he listens to a rancher at the bar, talking about the future. "I've got plans to expand the land, to bring in more cattle. Things are looking good," he says with a satisfied grin. "Hard work, but it'll be worth it in the end." The cowboy's mind races as he listens. The rancher's life sounds full of certainty, a path defined by the land and the future. But is it really that simple? Is this sense of purpose something the cowboy could ever understand? Or does the rancher's smile hide the emptiness that lies beneath the surface? He watches the townsfolk with a growing sense of doubt. Could they all truly be content? Could their structured lives, with their daily routines and predictable patterns, be fulfilling for them? He wonders if their comfort has come at the cost of something more profound: the growth he has experienced during his years of wandering. He's seen more of the world than most men here ever will, faced the harshest conditions, and come out the other side with a deeper understanding of his own strength. Can the settlers, with their predictable lives and steady work, say the same? Has their comfort left them stagnant? Or is it his wandering, his never-ending search, that has kept him from growing? The cowboy shakes his head, trying to clear the thoughts swirling in his mind. He doesn't want to resent the settlers. They've built lives, families, communities. But at the same time, he can shake the feeling that their sense of fulfillment is based on a kind of illusion, an illusion that once you find a place, settle down, and build a life, you'll be content. But what if that life is just settling for something less? Is it enough? This sense of belonging, this sense of comfort. What if the price of this comfort is the loss of something greater, something that only a life of freedom can offer? The cowboy sits back in his chair, the words of the rancher fading into the background. The question lingers: he ever truly find peace here in the town, or will the weight of roots and commitment drag him down, just as it has done to the settlers he's watched for so long? His gaze drifts toward the door, toward the open plains, beyond the town. The wide, endless horizon calls to him once more. There, in the open space, he knows he will find the peace that has always eluded him in the confines of the town. The town has comfort, but the trail has freedom. For now, that's all he needs. As the cowboy sits at the corner table in the saloon, nursing the drink that's barely touched his lips, a figure approaches. The man's boots echo on the wooden floor, sharp and deliberate, a sound that draws the cowboy's attention. He turns, catching sight of a tall figure dressed in well-worn denim, with a wide-brimmed hat pulled low over his face. His hands are calloused, worn from years of hard labor, and his face bears the faint lines of age and wisdom. This is a man who's spent his life working the land, who's forged his identity through sweat and perseverance. The rancher introduces himself with a firm handshake, his grip strong. The kind of handshake that speaks of years of hard work and He's a fixture in the town, a man who embodies the values that define it: family, land ownership, and self-sufficiency. He's built something substantial here, a ranch that spans miles, with a herd of cattle that have been carefully cultivated over the years. "You're new around here," the rancher says, his voice deep but friendly. "I've seen you ride through town a few times, always moving like a man with no plans, no place to settle." "Name's Harrison, by the way." The cowboy nods, a quiet acknowledgement of the rancher's words. "He doesn't give his name, right? Awaynams have always been a part of the past," he hissed, trying to leave behind. But Harrison doesn't seem to mind. He knows exactly what the cowboy represents: the wandering soul. Someone used to the lonely trail, the unpredictable freedom of the open land. Harrison doesn't hesitate to offer a proposition. "I've got a piece of land here. I could use a good hand. Someone who knows cattle, who knows the land. What do you say? You've got the skills, I can tell. There's work to be had, and a place for you if you're willing to put down some roots." The cowboy, his brow furrowing slightly, feels the weight of the words settle into his chest. He's heard offers like this before, from other men, other ranchers, who saw his skills as something to be harnessed. It's an offer of stability, of community, and yet, the idea of settling down stirs an unsettling feeling in him, a sense of entrapment, a loss of the freedom he's always known. Harrison leans against the bar, casually sipping from his mug, as he begins to talk about his life. "Land's been good to me," he says with a proud smile, his voice full of certainty. "Been working it for years. It's tough, no doubt. The land doesn't give without taking, but it's ours. It's something to build on. Cattle trade's always been good, but it's the long-term investments that make a man's life here. The seasons change, the land shifts, but you build something strong over time. We work hard, but we reap what we sow." The cowboy listens, the words drifting over him. Hard work, land, and investees are the cornerstones of Harrison's world, the values that have shaped his life. He talks about his ranch, about the future of the land, about passing on what he's built to his children. It's a life that makes sense to him: steady, structured, and predictable. Harrison's world revolves around commitment to the land, to the cattle, and to the community he's helped establish. He talks about the future as though it's already carved out for him, as though it's just a matter of time before the next season comes, before the next harvest and the next round of profits. The cowboy, however, feels a deep disconnect as he listens. Freedom has always been his guiding principle, and it has always come at the cost of roots. He's lived on his own terms, guided by the winds of change, without the constraints of structure or commitment. The idea of staying in one place, of building something lasting, feels like a compromise, a trade-off for the freedom that means so much to him. He looks out the window, beyond the town, beyond the walls that enclose him. The landscape that stretches before him feels wild, open, unpredictable, the land he's known his whole life. The thought of staying in one place, of becoming part of a community that depends on him, unsettles him deeply. The cowboy's values have always been about independence, about wandering without a final destination, finding solace in the unknown. It is the uncertainty of the trail that gives him purpose, the constant sense that freedom is just beyond the horizon. But Harrison's world, with its focus on stability and long-term growth, seems foreign to him. The idea of settling down doesn't sit well with the cowboy's soul. The land, the cattle, the ranch, they're things that need to be tended, nurtured, and maintained. The cowboy has never been one to tend to anything for long. His attachment to the land has always been temperamental. It's not about owning or stabilizing it. It's about moving through it, always on the move. Despite the tension between their worlds, something unexpected begins to stir between the cowboy and Harrison. There's a mutual respect, born out of their shared understanding of land though. They approach it from different perspectives. Both men have spent their lives in the service of the land, though in very different ways. Harrison is a man of the land, working it, building on it, while the cowboy is a man of the road, passing through it, living with it but never staying long enough to call it home. Harrison looks at the cowboy, sensing the man's restlessness. "You've been on the move for a long time," he says, his voice quieter now, more thoughtful. "I can see it in your eyes. It's in the way you carry yourself. But there's a life, here, real work to be done. You've got the skills, and you can make a real place for yourself. This town, this land there, more than just a job. It's a way of life. You don't have to be alone all the time, you know?" The cowboy meets his gaze. For a moment, there's something familiar in Harrison's words. The strength of his conviction, the ease with which he talks about community, about family, strikes a chord deep within the cowboy. There's something in Harrison's eyes, a quiet wisdom that comes from years of living with the land, that the cowboy can respect. But despite the connection, despite the small flicker of understanding that passes between them, the cowboy knows his own truth. He is a wanderer, a nomad, someone who will never settle down, no matter how tempting the promise of a stable, grounded life may seem. The cowboy may understand Harrison's way of life, but he can never be part of it. His path is different. As they share a drink in silence, the cowboy's mind races with the decision he knows he must make. He will continue on, but not in the way the settlers have. He cannot give up the freedom of the open trail, the solitude that has become his closest companion. He knows that the price of settling down is to high it would mean losing himself. And yet, the brief connection with Harrison, the mutual respect, gives him something to think about as he rides out of town. The cowboy knows he will never be a rancher, never build a life like the settlers. But in Harrison, he sees a reflection of the hard work and sacrifice that makes a man strong. It's a world he can admire, but one he can never join. As the cowboy steps out of the saloon, the warmth of the afternoon sun catches his face. The hum of the town continues behind him, the sounds of wagons rolling over dirt, children's laughter, the occasional bark of a dog, but he's distanced from it now. His thoughts wander back to the long road that led him here, to the endless search for something that now feels so distant and inconsequential. The gold, once so prominent in his mind, has faded into memory, like a dream slipping through the fingers of morning light. The town, with its settled ways and quiet routines, only deepens his realization. As he reflects on his time spent in the wilderness, on the long hours of solitude and the quiet of the trail, he wonders whether the pursuit of gold ever truly brought him any closer to happiness, or, if it only perpetuated his discontent, was the gold the answer he thought it would be. For years he believed it would fill the emptiness he carried inside. A way to redeem himself from past mistakes, a way to escape the weight of expectation and failure. He believed that finding the gold would be the key to a better life, one where he could prove his worth, where he could escape the loneliness of the past and build something more lasting, something real. But now, sitting on the edge of the town, the gold feels like a fading. It was never the treasure itself that he sought, it was the promise it represented. His thoughts drift to the rancher's words, the simple yet profound way the man talked about land, family, and legacy. Wealth, as the rancher spoke of it, was not measured in gold or silver. It was in hard work, in building a life, in the community he had created through years of commitment to the land. The rancher's life, though difficult, had purpose and roots, things the cowboy had never really considered before. The more the cowboy reflects on his past, the more he sees that the treasure hunt was never about the wealth itself. It was always about filling a void away to prove that he was worth something beyond the isolation of the trail. He had convinced himself that finding the gold would be the answer to all his questions, that it would bring him peace, success, and relief from the restlessness that had followed him for years. But now, in the calm of the town, the realization is clear. The search for gold was never about the gold itself. It was about the hope that the treasure could somehow give him the answers he'd been searching for. As the cowboy walks through the town, he reflects on the lives of the settlers he's encountered, the ranchers, the families, the hard-working men who have put their time and effort into something more than just wealth. They've built lives that are rooted in the land, in their relationships, in the future they are creating for themselves and their children. The gold he once sought, the prize that he thought would change everything, now feels irrelevant. almost absurd. Wealth was always a means to an end, not the end itself. The gold, the treasure, the pusseted, was always about proving something, proving that he could escape, that he could find success in a world that had left him behind. The cowboy now sees that his emptiness wasn't something to be filled by treasure. It was something to be understood, something to be accepted. It was the pursuit that had kept him moving forward, not the gold itself. The wealth the cowboy once sought so desperately was always fleeting, a mirage that disappeared as soon as he got close enough. The real wealth, he now realizes, lies not in gold, but in the life he's created. It's in the solitude that has shaped him, in the resilience he's built through the challenges he's faced, in the personal growth that has come from his years of wandering the land. The treasure he sought was always within him: his strength, his independence, and his ability to survive. As he walks through the town, he feels the weight of self-realization. The townspeople's way of life, settled, structured, predictable, was never meant to be his. He could never have embraced the life of a rancher, of a man tied to the land, living out his days with certainty. But he can appreciate it now. He sees the value in what they've built, and for the first time he understands that true fulfillment doesn't come from gold, but from what you do with your life, the choices you make, the community you create, and the challenges you face along the way. The cowboy's mind drifts back to the long nights spent alone, under the vast sky, with only the sound of the wind and the distant calls of coyotes to keep him company. The years on the trail, despite their loneliness, have taught him more than anything he could have learned in a town like this. The solitude has been his teacher. It has taught him to listen to the land, to trust his instincts, and to rely on himself. He remembers the days when the land was all he had, when the hours seemed endless and the challenges never stopped coming. There were moments of doubt, moments when he thought he couldn't go on, but each time, the land taught him something new. It taught him that the strength he needed to survive wasn't just physical, it was mental, emotional. It was the quiet determination to keep moving forward, to face the hardships of the land and life head on, without turning back. The cowboy now understands that the loneliness he once resented is what has made him who he is. It is the silence of the open plains that has allowed him to listen to his own thoughts, to reflect on his choices, and to understand the depth of his own heart. He has learned to be comfortable with himself, to accept the fact that he doesn't need others to define his worth. The years of solitude have given him a deeper sense of self-reliance than he ever thought possible. As the cowboy stands at the edge of the town, looking out over the vast land that has always been his home, he feels a sense of peace settle in his chest. He may not have found the gold, but he has found something far more valuable: the peace that comes with understanding oneself, the clarity that comes from facing the unknown and finding meaning in the journey itself. The gold was never meant to be his reward. The real reward has always been in the lessons he's learned on the trail, the strength he's gained from walking it alone, and the understanding that the greatest treasure is not in what you own, but in who you become. The saloon is quieter now, the steady hum of conversation replaced by the distant clatter of a horse's hooves on the cobbled street outside. The cowboy sits at the same table where Harrison first approached him, the drink before him untouched, its surface now warm from the afternoon sun seeping through the window. The weight of the past few days hangs on him like a heavy cloak, and as he sits there, he feels the stillness of the moment, the silence that has been absent for so long in the midst of the town. As puzzling energy, Harrison's words echo in his mind. There's work to be had, a place for you, if you're willing to stay. The cowboy feels a shift within him, an internal tug of war between the life he has known and the one that is being offered here. Community, belonging, these are things he's never truly understood until now, things he's spent his life avoiding, and yet, here they are right in front of him. The settlers have found something in this town that he has never had. A sense of purpose, a shared commitment to the land and to each other. But there's something else, too: the freedom of the open plains, the independence he's known for so long. For the first time, the cowboy feels torn between these two worlds of the town, with its routines, its certainty, and the wide, untamed land, with its unpredictability, its wildness, and the freedom to go wherever the wind takes him. Which is more valuable? Which will lead to the peace he's been searching for? The cowboy shifts in his chair, his mind racing. He watches the rancher at the bar, talking animatedly with a few other men. Harrison's life rooted in this town, tied to the land, to family, and to a future that is both tangible and secure, stands in stark contrast to the cowboy's life of freedom. But there's an undeniable pull to stay, to find purpose in the community, in the work of the land. The prospect of stability, the idea of belonging, stirs something in him, a longing, an unspoken desire for connection. Yet, as the sun sinks lower in the sky, the cowboy's mind clears. The decision isn't as complicated as it seems. He knows deep down that no matter how appealing the offer of the town may be, it cannot offer him what he values most: freedom. The independence of the open plains is something no town, no settler, can give him. The land has always been his home. It has always been where he finds his peace, not in the noise of the town, nor in the constant demands of community. The cowboy looks out the window again, his eyes tracing the endless horizon, the wide expanse that stretches out before him. This is his life. The trails, the wind, the solitude, these are the things that have shaped him, that have allowed him to grow. They've taught him more than any town ever could, more than any community bound by rules and incantations. The gold was never the answer. The real treasure has always been the land, the freedom to roam, to live life on his own terms, without the confines of society or the pressure of stability. In this moment of clarity, the cowboy understands what he must do. He won't give up his life on the trail, won't surrender the freedom he's fought for so long to maintain. But he'll leave the town with a new understanding, a deeper sense of self. The gold may have eluded him, but the wealth he's found is in his independence, his ability to survive on his own, and the peace that comes with it. With this newfound understanding, the cowboy knows the path before him is clear. He will continue his journey, not in search of gold, but for something far more valuable, a life of authenticity. He will continue to ride, to roam, but now with a sense of purpose that he hasn't had before. His time in the town has shown him that wealth isn't about ownership or material things. It's about the freedom to live life according to one's own values and the strength to forge a life that is not defined by the expectations of others. As he considers his future, the cowboy contemplates a life that's still partly tied to the land, not the town, but the wildness that calls to him from beyond the horizon. The town will always be there, but for him, it's never been about building something permanent. His heart is restless, always searching for the next horizon, always yearning for the freedom that comes with knowing he is the master of his own fate. The cowboy's life will always be one of solitude, but now it is a solitude that is not filled with regret or loneliness. It is the solitude that comes with purpose, with a deep understanding of the world and his place in it. It is not a life of searching, but of living authentically and on his own terms. The cowboy stands up from the table, his decision made. He walks toward the door, his movements deliberate. As he reaches the threshold, he glances back at the saloon, at the men gathered inside. For a brief moment, he hesitates, wondering if he'll ever return to this place, wondering if, deep down, he is turning his back on something that could have been home. But then, with a deep breath, he steps outside into the cool evening air. He mounts his horse, feeling the familiar grip of the reins in his hand. As he rides through the streets of the town, he can feel the weight of the decision lift from his shoulders. He isn't running from anything. He's choosing to continue forward, embracing the freedom he's always known. His path lies ahead, and with it, a new understanding of what wealth truly is. It's not about gold, not about a place to call home, but about staying true to himself, and about continuing to forge a life that aligns with his values. The town, with its structure and community, was never meant to be his. He has learned something here, something important. But the land, that opened, wild land, has always been his true calling. As the cowboy rides off into the evening, the sun setting behind him, he feels the familiar peace that comes with knowing he is living life on his own terms. The journey continues, but now it is a journey of understanding, of acceptance, and of embracing the life that only the West can offer, a life that is rooted not in gold, but in freedom. As the cowboy rides out of the town, the last of the sunlight spills across the vast expanse of the horizon, casting long shadows on the dusty road ahead. He glances back once more at the town, now a small silhouette against the fading light, a place that offered him something he'd never sought, something he didn't think he needed. For a brief moment, the comfort of community, of belonging, tugs at his heart, but it fades quickly, and with it, the realization that his journey, his true journey, lies elsewhere. As he rides deeper into the open land, the familiar feeling of freedom settles over him, like a long-lost friend. The wind stirs his hair, and the rhythmic thud of his horse's hooves fills the silence. There's no chatter here, no clinking glasses or laughter, only the quiet hum of the world around him. This is what he's known, what he's always known, the open trail, the space between him and the rest of the world. But this time, something feels different. His solitude no longer feels like an escape, no longer feels like a desperate need to avoid something. Instead, it feels like piece a piece he's earned through years of walking this land, facing the hardships of isolation, and coming to terms with the life he's chosen. The cowboy's thoughts are clear now, sharper than they've been in a long time. He's changed. The man who first set out for gold, for wealth and the hope that it would fill a deep, aching emptiness, is gone. In his place is someone who values something else, someone who knows that the journey itself is where the treasure lies. As the cowboy rides, his gaze fixed on the ever-expanding horizon, he reflects on the transformation that has taken place within him. He can hardly recognize the man who once believed that wealth and treasure could solve his problems. That man, the one who was driven by the need to prove something to himself, to the world, is no longer who he is. He has shed the need for validation. He no longer needs to prove that he is worthy of something greater. The golden dream he chased for so long was never the real answer. What he has found instead is independence, yes, but with a deeper understanding of what it means to be connected to the world around him. He has come to realize that true freedom is not just about being unshackled from the expectations of others, it is about balance. It's the balance between solitude and companionship, between work and rest, between ambition and contentment. He has learned that freedom doesn't mean living without responsibility, but rather embracing the responsibility that comes with choosing to live life on his own terms. The cowboy smiles faintly to himself as the wind picks up, carrying the scent of sagebrush and earth. He's no longer lost, not in the way he once was. He's found a peace that comes not from the pursuit of something external, like gold or recognition, but from the acceptance of the life he has. He has learned that contentment doesn't come from the world outside it, comes from the choices he makes, from the person he chooses to be. For the cowboy, the West was once a place of boundless opportunity, a land where he could seek out his fortune, find his place, and escape whatever chains had held him back in the past. He came here with a dream of gold, of wealth, of making something of himself. But over time, that dream has morphed into something else entirely. The West is no longer just a place of opportunity in the way he once thought. It's now a place of personal freedom. It's a place where he has the power to choose his path, to decide what matters most, and to live according to his own values. The cowboy's life is not defined by the wealth he has accumulated. He has learned that wealth is not measured in coins or gold, but in choices. His wealth comes from his freedom to roam, from his connection to the land, and from the growth he's experienced by living through the hardship of the trail. The West has shaped him, molded him into someone who understands that the journey itself is where the value lies, not in what you find at the end. The land is no longer something to conquer, it's something to live alongside. He's not trying to tame it, not trying to own it, but to be part of it. It has offered him more than he ever thought it could have. As he rides, he feels a deep connection to the earth beneath him, the land that has seen him through so many trials, the land that has given him the strength to continue when everything else seemed impossible. The West is home, not because of what it offers materially, but because it has shaped him into the person he is now. The cowboy knows that the road ahead is uncertain, as it always has been, but he's no longer afraid of what lies beyond the next hill. He doesn't need to have everything planned out, doesn't need to have a destination or a goal other than living authentically. He has learned to embrace the unknown, to accept that life is full of surprises, twists, and turns. His path isn't straight, it's winding, unpredictable, and free. As the cowboy looks out over the vast plains, he knows that he'll continue on, not searching for gold, but seeking something far more precious. He'll live the life he's chosen, a life that doesn't need external validation, a life that is rich with the experiences of the trail, the freedom to make his own choices, and the knowledge that his worth comes from within. He may never settle in one place, may never build the kind of life that others around him have built, but he has found something more enduring, the peace of knowing who he is and embracing the freedom to live that truth every day. As he reaches the edge of the town, the cowboy feels a final sense of closure. The town is behind him now, and though it offered him something, community, connection, and the possibility of belonging, it wasn't enough to make him step. He turns his horse away from the town and heads into the open land, where the sky is wide and the possibilities are endless. The road ahead is unknown, but that's the way he likes it. As he rides on, a faint smile crosses his face. He may never find the treasure he once sought, but he has found something far more valuable. The freedom to live on his own terms, the strength to face whatever comes, and the peace of knowing that he is exactly where he is supposed to be. In this final section, the cowboy reaches a point of inner peace, understanding that his journey is what defines him, not the treasure he once sought. The West, once seen as a place of boundless opportunity, now represents personal freedom, where the cowboy finds value in his choices, his connection to the land, and the growth he's achieved through solitude and independence. The cowboy's future lies not in wealth but in living authentically, embracing the unpredictability of life, and finding fulfillment in the freedom of the open trail.